Ceres wakes into a memory of warmth surrounded by women draping a flower garland around his neck. One tells him she likes him, the others chime in, calling him mature for his age and admiring the seriousness in his eyes. The scene shifts to 5 figures walking down a quiet country road, their backs turned to the reader. A single thought lingers, cut short. Text introduces the premise. A man builds a new life and harem in another world alongside the mothers of 4 heroes, after losing everything to the hero himself. Ceres jolts awake in his own bed, realizing the memory was only a dream. Still lying down, he stares blankly at the ceiling, unsettled by why the past resurfaced now. He calculates the years quietly. It has been roughly a decade since those events took place. Flashback. Ceres explains he once fought as a mage in a 5-person hero party called Light of Hope, formed to defeat the Demon King. The group had been inseparable, watching each other's backs through every battle. He hurries down a stairwell, hoping his companions Shizuko and the others are doing well, muttering that he needs to move faster, before Zek starts complaining. Ceres arrives to find the party waiting for him. Someone speaks his name flatly. Zek, the party's golden-haired leader, delivers the blow without softening it. Ceres is being removed from the party. Ceres absorbs the news quietly, admitting to himself he expected something like this eventually. Narration lays out Zek's reputation: talented, skilled, handsome, everything a hero should be, praised by everyone around him, but he carries one glaring flaw. That flaw is spelled out directly. Zek is an unrepentant womanizer, shown here with 2 women draped over him. One teammate reminds Ceres plainly that he was never going to be allowed to stay. Zek explains his reasoning without apology, saying he needs achievements to match his ambitions and that Ceres has become a liability holding him back. He tries to soften it by insisting they're still friends. A teammate, named Mel, objects, asking if she still has no say, while another woman argues Ceres would only end up seriously hurt or dead if he stayed. A private thought surfaces that concern is likely the real reason Zek brought her into the conversation at all. Ceres' eyes narrow. Sitting alone on the stairs afterward, Ceres reflects that despite always standing by her side, she still chose Zek over him. Zek, meanwhile, grins in the shadows. Zek twists the knife further, suggesting Ceres go find some weaker party in the countryside instead, his arms wrapped around the women beside him. Ceres later admits the misunderstanding to himself. Zek assumed he and Mel were involved and moved to cut him out of the picture entirely, since Mel never had real feelings for him anyway. He decides he is fine with how things ended, though a passing remark still needles at Zek's superiority complex. Ceres reasons through his options, telling himself that even if he drops from S rank to a rank, plenty of parties would still take him. He admits privately that he doesn't really have a choice, since staying would only cause more friction. Zek insists in the rain that he meant it when he called Ceres a close friend, adding that he wishes Ceres had been more upfront with him. Shizuko watches quietly, calling it goodbye. Back inside, Zek confirms Ceres is really leaving the party. Ceres offers his farewell, wishing the 4 of them well, and thanking them for everything up to this point. Ceres walks out with a wave, calling back a casual see ya around, as the group watches him go. Walking the city streets alone, he reflects that those people mattered to him, just not romantically. He admits to himself he has been hiding something none of them ever knew. What he felt for them was closer to what a father feels for his children. The setting shifts to a modern city skyline, revealing his secret directly: he is a transmigrator. In his previous life, he was a 42-year-old father, husband, and high-ranking employee at a trading company. He acknowledges outright that in this world he is essentially a gerontophile, since everyone his own age looks like a child to him. He explains further, noting this world follows customs like old Japan, where people are only expected to live to around 50 from his perspective. That is an enormous waste. He views the locals as effectively falling into a very different category from what he considers appropriate romantic partners, since women here are seen as old once they pass their mid-20s, no longer treated as women past 17. He states his own standard plainly: someone has to be well past their mid-20s before he'd see them romantically, a result of dying at 42 and waking up 14 in this world. Since he'd been tied up with the hero's party until now, he never had time to visit certain places and decides to stop by one before heading home. He arrives at a building where a slaver in formal attire greets him warmly at the door. The slaver recognizes him, surprised someone from the hero's party would visit, and Ceres corrects him, saying he is just an independent adventurer now after getting kicked out. Invited to browse, he is told they have everything from elves to former nobles, and he asks to see the female slaves. He clarifies he is specifically interested in the lower-value female slaves, starting with household workers. The slaver pulls back a curtain, mentioning this is where the housekeeping and lesser-value slaves are kept, remarking that it makes sense a man living alone would need help around the house. Behind the curtain, several cramped cages come into view, holding people crouched under thin sheets. Ceres reacts with visible disgust, noting they're being treated like animals without even beds to sleep on. One cage holds a woman with reddish, brown hair sitting alone on the bare floor, dressed in a torn white outfit, a small bowl left beside her. Ceres freezes, disbelief crossing his face. The woman inside the cage looks up sharply, recognizing him with a startled gasp. He identifies her immediately, Shizuko. She struggles to speak, only managing a broken syllable of his name. Ceres stares back, stunned, silently, asking himself why she of all people would end up somewhere like this. Ceres admits silently that this woman standing before him was his first love, holding out a small bundle of flowers to her in memory. He kneels by the cage, identifying her plainly to himself. Shizuko, mother of Zek the hero, back at the counter. Ceres questions why her price is so low. The slaver explains the total comes to 5 silver coins, plus 3 more for the slave mark, calling it a reasonable amount for an elderly village woman with several children. The slaver notes they only stock clothing for younger women and asks if that is acceptable. Ceres agrees to pay with a gold coin and requests clothes and a bath be arranged for her, silently noting that in this world, Shizuko is technically still only in her 30s. The contract is finalized. Shizuko, now dressed in a maid outfit, asks him gently not to stare so intensely. Ceres apologizes for the reaction and suggests they buy her proper clothes once they leave. Shizuko apologizes for making him spend money on someone she calls an old woman, though the outfit fits her strangely well. She reassures him that as long as the ownership is clear, everything will be fine, and the slaver hands over her documents. Outside, the slaver confirms the transaction is complete and thanks him for his business. At a clothing shop, Shizuko goes to change, emerging moments later in a modest outfit. She asks how it looks. Ceres tells her it looks great, and she laughs bashfully, clearly pleased. Sitting together on a bench afterward, she offers him a bite of food, only for him to react with surprise, asking what she is doing. She lowers her head, promising to devote herself entirely to him from now on. Ceres cuts her off gently, telling her she doesn't need to do all that. She insists it is only natural given her position, calling herself his slave with a nervous laugh. Her composure breaks and she starts crying quietly, covering her face. Ceres waits patiently for her to calm down before asking what happened, reflecting privately that comforting her feels different from comforting Mel, more like caring for a child than anything romantic. Watching her, he admits she suits his tastes well, noting she carries herself like a mature Japanese beauty, fitting for someone like him who was Japanese in his previous life. Shizuko finally explains she was sold by her own husband. Ceres notes that doesn't add up, since Zek's rise to hero status brought his family a huge sum from the state. Shizuko confirms it, saying her husband got recognized and paid handsomely for it. Flashback shows her husband spending recklessly on women, gambling and drink, the money vanishing fast once it arrived. He proposed one last night out in the city, before promising to stop spending. Shizuko admits she never criticized him for his nightlife spending, and had gone along hopefully, not realizing it was a setup. He sold her straight to the slave traders. She adds that Zek refuses to help, loving his father despite everything and resenting her. Ceres wonders why she never wrote to Zek about it, and she recalls that her son always hated how serious and strict she could be. Ceres reflects that money changes people, remarking to himself he never expected old man Zector to fall so far once the funds ran dry. A flashback reveals a younger Zector telling a boyish Ceres that if he still wants Shizuko, 1 gold coin will make her his, adding that by the time Ceres turns 15, she'll already be an old hag. Ceres recalls hearing that same line as a child, though he privately admits Zector wasn't entirely wrong by this world's standards, since women past 20 are considered worthless here. Shizuko laughs it off, saying she can't do anything about her situation at this point regardless. Someone asks if she isn't angry at Zector for what he did. She answers coldly that a man like that is bound to end up in hell eventually, her smile turning sharp as Ceres flinches beside her, unsettled walking together afterward. Shizuko brings up how buying her must have dredged up painful memories for him. Ceres apologizes for making her relive it. She tells him it genuinely made her happy, covering her flushed face with both hands. Ceres privately thinks she is beautiful. She teases that he is the only one who'd say something like that, and he insists she isn't old at all. He reflects on their history after his parents died when he was a child, She was the one who encouraged him, standing out even among a village full of kind people, partly shaping why he wanted to protect Zekt and his childhood friends, walking hand in hand with him as a boy. He recalls her as endlessly kind, the best possible woman for the role of a mother. In the present, she thanks him warmly and offers to cook something delicious, saying she'll do anything for him. He calls her a wonderful woman. Ceres assumes privately that she probably still sees him as nothing more than a kid. She asks cheerfully if there is anything she can do for him, reminding him she is his slave now. She adds, almost teasingly, that she is open to whatever he wants, if it is up to her. He answers with a faint smile that he'd be happy if she became his lover. She freezes, caught completely off guard by the words. She laughs it off nervously, asking if she heard him right. She protests that someone nearly twice her age wouldn't want a woman like her, telling him to stop joking about love like that. He insists he is completely serious, reminding her he confessed to her once already. Back when he was still a child, she is thrown off, quietly startled by how much he has grown. Taller now than her, trying to deflect, she laughs and suggests he must have plenty of childhood friends who'd fall for someone as handsome as him instead. He simply smiles and mentions that Zekt is already involved with all of them. Shizuko covers her mouth in mock disbelief, calling it poor taste that his childhood friends would pick Zekt over him. Ceres tells her he accepts her offer, and she agrees, saying if he insists, she declares she'll be his lover, but only until he finds a girl he actually likes. He accepts the terms, simply thanking her. She insists she should be the one thanking him instead, her face flushing as he takes her hand. Both of them share a quiet, contented smile. Ceres reflects that this marked the beginning of his new life with Shizuko. He notes privately that he was now living under the same roof as the woman of his dreams, their hands intertwined. Morning light spread over the town's rooftops as a new day began. Ceres lay awake beside Shizuko, admitting quietly that his heart had been racing too much to sleep after the events of the night before. Shizuko had cried herself to sleep, overwhelmed by the shock of everything that happened to her. Ceres had stayed holding her hand through the night, and she woke calling his name. They greeted each other with simple good mornings, their hands still linked from the night before. Shizuko brushed it off with a laugh, and Ceres apologized, a little embarrassed at being caught holding on so long. Shizuko teased him for being so kind, pointing out that he'd held her hand simply because she'd been crying. Over breakfast, Ceres laid out the plan for the day: eat, then head to the guild. Shizuko agreed it made more sense for her to be registered as an adventurer if she was going to travel with him. Ceres presented the meal he'd prepared, hoping it would be to her liking. Shizuko was stunned by the spread in front of her, admitting she'd barely eaten anything like it since her marriage. Ceres explained that on the road, home, cooked meals were rare for him too. She took a bite and lit up immediately, declaring it delicious. Ceres confessed that even now, he preferred her cooking over his own. Shizuko struck a deal on the spot. If he bought the ingredients, she'd happily cook for him any time. As she ate, a thought crossed his mind. She wasn't just skilled in the kitchen, she was open-minded and capable of handling every chore without complaint. He compared her to the other women around him, admitting that no matter how pretty the younger girls were, none of them compared to Shizuko. Being around her, he realized, never got old. The two sat together over tea, comfortable and at ease in each other's company. At the Adventurers Guild, Ceres stepped up to request registration and a party application. The receptionist recognized him instantly and asked how she could help. When she noticed Shizuko standing beside him, the receptionist's expression shifted, clearly caught off guard by the pairing. Other girls nearby didn't hold back, openly questioning whether someone her age had any business joining a party with Ceres. Shizuko took the insult in stride, agreeing with a smile that yes, she supposed she was already an old grandma. Ceres cut through the mockery, stating plainly that he wanted her status reinstated. Since he was the one teaming up with her, he saw no reason for further registration. Shizuko revealed a secret of her own. She had once been an adventurer herself, quitting before her marriage. Neither her ex-husband nor Zekt had ever known. The staff asked to confirm her blood registry, and she explained she'd kept it hidden because both men had been too prideful to be told. The revelation left both of them standing in stunned silence, the truth settling in as the guild buzzed quietly around them. The guild master, a towering man with a rugged build, apologized on behalf of a girl named Sally for how she had acted toward Shizuko earlier. Shizuko laughed it off and asked if he'd taken the guild master position now, teasingly calling him Barry. He corrected her, insisting she stop with the nickname, then asked if she really thought she should return to adventuring. Despite everything, she admitted she'd been fortunate in her marriage, but felt the pull to come back anyway. Ceres muttered that the whole situation was becoming an absurd story, Beldar, the guildmaster, apologized for the earlier scene, then declared he had no objection to reinstating the woman once known as the black-haired healer. Ceres asked what exactly this black-haired healer title meant. Beldar explained she had been a master healer, leaps and bounds above anyone else in her prime. Shizuko added, laughing, that she'd also been a former Shrank adventurer. Ceres reeled at the revelation, stunned that someone so strong had ended up enslaved so easily, on top of already being family-oriented and open-minded. Beldar explained that since she'd been out of the field for so long, he couldn't restore her rank immediately and offered to start her back at a rank instead. Shizuko agreed without complaint, and Sally apologized for her earlier rudeness. Beldar left the two women to sort out the details. Sally, now composed, asked if something was troubling Ceres, then offered to show him the quests currently available. Shizuko pointed one out, and Ceres considered it while she watched, admitting the whole revelation had left him a little dazed. The quest called for slaying an earth dragon, weak by dragon standards, but still not something to attempt alone, backed by a hefty reward. Shizuko lit up and asked to come along, eager despite Ceres' hesitation. He agreed on the condition that she stay back and observe rather than fight, silently worried about putting her in danger. Afterwards, Shizuko suggested heading back to the inn to borrow a kitchen and prepare lunch for the road, and the two set off together. As they walked, Shizuko revealed she had once partied with the mothers of Lyda, Mel, and Maria. Adding that the group hadn't been just her alone, she introduced them one by one. Maria's mother Misaki, Mel's mother Sayo, and Lyda's mother Haruka, calling them all good people to her. She reminisced about how skilled they all were as adventurers, and how strange men often tried to approach their all-female party. No one dared approach them after certain encounters, she said, until each of them eventually settled down married and became ordinary village women. Ceres asked why. If she'd been so capable, she let herself be turned into a slave instead of fighting back. She explained her husband had drugged her from behind, catching her off guard the moment she let her guard down. Ceres seethed at the betrayal on her behalf, vowing payback the next time their paths crossed. Shizuko laughed along, and the two settled down to share lunch as they neared their destination. Ceres offered to share the leftovers, but Shizuko waved him off, insisting she wasn't a kid anymore and could eat on her own. He thanked her for the meal, and they finished up before continuing toward the mountains. Standing before the dragon's territory, Ceres tightened his grip on his sword, sensing something unsettling about the place while Shizuko stayed close behind. Massive claws dragged across the stone as the beast revealed itself, wings unfurling as it rose to its full height. Far larger than expected for the job, the dragon roared, jaws snapping toward them. Shizuko cried out for Ceres to pull back to safety. Ceres launched forward, blade raised while the creature coiled its horned tail, taunting him for being too slow to keep up. He answered by channeling magic through his weapon, calling out the spell as wind gathered around the blade. A surge of wind, charged steel tore through the air, meeting the dragon's open jaw's head. Undeterred, Ceres pressed the assault, driving forward with a fierce cry as the clash intensified. He leapt skyward, sword raised high, bringing it down with full force against the beast's armored hide. The strike connected, and for a moment Ceres allowed himself to think the fight was already won. But before he could recover, Shizuko screamed a warning that something else was closing in behind him. Jagged spikes of rock burst from the ground, aimed straight for where he stood. Rising from the rubble was a second creature, roaring with fury, its body built entirely from stone. Ceres spun to face the new threat as it lashed out toward him. Shizuko stepped in front of him, hands raised, summoning a barrier of holy light to block the incoming attack. The shield held firm, deflecting the strike as Ceres shouted her name in alarm. Realizing their mistake, Ceres corrected himself, recognizing the true nature of their opponent, not a mere earth dragon but its far stronger cousin, the rock dragon. Shizuko apologized for the confusion and asked what they should do next. Ceres simply smiled and raised his hand. Ready to answer with force, he unleashed a torrent of ice, the spell tearing across the battlefield in a wave of jagged frost. The freezing assault slammed into the stone dragon, shards scattering as it staggered under the impact. Ceres surged forward with a battle cry, driving through the frozen wreckage, and launched himself into the air for the finishing blow. Blade drawn back and ready to strike. The blade came down in a wide, tearing arc, cutting deep through the dragon's guard as the beast let out one final, ragged breath. The creature collapsed in a heap, its massive body finally still. Ceres knelt in the aftermath, catching his breath. As the fight came to a close, he moved to sever the heads of both fallen dragons, sealing them away inside a dimensional bag for the trip back. Back in town, Shizuko presented the kills for assessment, only for the shopkeeper to shriek at the sight of something so massive being hauled inside. insisting they take it straight to the warehouse instead. The guildmaster examined the carcass, stunned to recognize it as a rock dragon and asking how they had possibly managed to hunt one. Ceres brushed off the question vaguely, explaining simply that he jumped in, slashed its neck, and it dropped dead on the spot. Shizuko brought up something else entirely, cheerfully noting how well they'd made out with the reward money. Ceres cut in, reminding her that he'd told her to stay back and watch, rather than join the fight herself. Shizuko admitted she had jumped in because she didn't want to see him get hurt. Ceres countered that his worry had been for her safety instead. She reminded him again that she wasn't a child anymore, and didn't need that kind of protection. He held his ground anyway, telling her plainly that he intended to be the one protecting her from now on. The words caught her off guard, a warmth rising in her chest as she wondered if this was the very feeling she had buried and forgotten for so long. Shizuko, flushed and uncertain, struggled with the memory of their instruction to act like lovers. While older, she couldn't suppress the flutter in her chest whenever she believed of Ceres. Convincing herself it meant nothing, she reasoned he was simply lonely and needed comfort. Outside her home, Ceres hesitated, a wrapped gift in hand, unsure how she'd react. With a hopeful smile, he whispered her name, silently praying she'd accept the gesture warmly. Shizuko tried to compose herself as she remembered the instruction to act like lovers in public. While she knew it was only pretend, her heart throbbed with emotion she couldn't suppress. Convincing herself, it meant nothing. She silently accepted her role and buried her personal hopes. Ceres remained at her door, holding a box, nervous yet determined to deliver his gift. With a gentle smile, he offered it to her, silently hoping she would accept his feelings. Ceres came back earlier than expected, bringing warmth to the room with a simple, sincere reason for coming. His words brightened Shizuko's face, her smile wide and genuine, caught off guard by his affection. With renewed spirit, he raised his fists in joy, completely energized by her happiness and response. While Maria carried the title of saint, Ceres believed Shizuko possessed the heart that truly mattered. For a moment, her beauty left him breathless, causing a rare pause that stated everything. A massive bouquet burst into view, leaving Shizuko stunned as petals gently scattered around the room. Still unsure if the gesture was truly for her, she hesitated until he confirmed it without pause. Her guarded heart started to soften, and she grinned warmly, moved by the unexpected kindness. Not stopping with flowers, Ceres presented a cake, suggesting they enjoy it together. Shizuko insisted they wait until after dinner, leaving Ceres flustered, however smiling, holding one more surprise. Ceres remembered her familiar expression from his childhood, recalling the warmth she shared with him and Zekt. They stepped outside together, sharing a peaceful evening stroll beneath the softly glowing street lamps. Shizuko expressed gratitude for the day, touched by the kindness she'd never experienced before. Ceres revealed one last gift, handing her a small box, with a slightly nervous smile. She opened it slowly, recognizing the meaning behind the necklace, a gesture far deeper than words faced with the necklace. Shizuko faltered, understanding its meaning was equal to a marriage proposal. Her voice trembled as she questioned his intent, knowing he couldn't be unaware of its weight. She feared accepting would lead to his regret, doubting her worth beside someone so sincere. However, Ceres confessed directly, expressing love with unwavering eyes, leaving her frozen in quiet disbelief. Despite her feelings, she hesitated, unable to believe someone like her could be truly wanted. Ceres spoke without hesitation, assuring her there was no one else he cherished more. His vow to stay by her side forever reached deep into her hesitant heart. Moved to tears, Shizuko questioned his resolve, struggling to accept the sincerity before her. Doubt still lingered, yet she wanted to believe he wouldn't regret choosing someone like her. Ceres embraced her tightly, declaring she was his first and only love in this world. Tears welled in her eyes as she leaned into his embrace, finally surrendering her hesitation. With careful hands, Shizuko placed the necklace around her neck, accepting what it symbolized. Confidence came back to her expression as she gazed up, eager for his reaction. Ceres answered softly, his words carrying weight that made her heart silently race. Afterward, alone under warm water, she released a breath she hadn't understood she was holding. Steam filled the room as Shizuko remained alone, facing the emotions she tried to avoid. Memories stirred while she recalled the unexpected gift, still doubting his intentions had been genuine. Thoughts of her past came back: betrayal, neglect, and being treated as an afterthought for years. She remembered Ceres' childhood words, the promises he made so many times before. Only now did she realize how long she had overlooked his sincerity and unwavering devotion. Shizuko recalled Ceres' past, dismissing his childhood words as signs of loneliness, not lasting feelings. Only now did she begin to realize that his intent had been sincere all along. A quiet decision formed tonight might be the first step she takes forward in many years. She doubted herself, however. A desire to meet his expectations gave her renewed determination. Even through self-conscious thoughts, a shy smile surfaced, touched by his long-standing affection from youth. Shizuko gathered her courage, deciding it was time to stop hesitating and move forward. Entering the room silently, she found Ceres waiting. His expression caught between tension and surprise. Wrapped in a towel, she calmly announced her return, keeping her voice gentle, however steady. Ceres remained flustered, overwhelmed by the moment, while she slowly approached without turning away. Sitting down, she accepted what came next. There was no more running from what she experienced. Shizuko lay silently, her heart pounding as she waited for Ceres in the dim room. A distant memory surfaced. Maruna's smiling face haunted her thoughts, drawing out guilt and hesitation. Ceres approached cautiously. Shizuko, nervous yet resolute, requested tenderness, her eyes revealing a complex vulnerability. Their closeness intensified, inexperience displayed on both sides. Yet neither pulled away from the growing tension. Breaths quickened, their connection deepened through a series of hesitant, however meaningful touches. Guided by trust, Ceres carried her close, guiding the moment with unexpected confidence that caught Shizuko off guard. She responded to his sincerity, her guarded heart slowly softening beneath his attentive gaze. While flustered, Shizuko allowed herself to be vulnerable, uncertain how to handle his focused attention. Ceres moved gently, his touch deliberate, seeking to understand her and ensure she experienced cared for. Emotions swelled within her, as she understood he was giving everything just to make her joyful. Ceres moved closer, and Shizuko experienced sensations she hadn't experienced before, her breath catching. His gestures became bolder, and despite hesitation, she didn't stop him as her body reacted. The moment experienced overwhelming. Unused to the attention, she struggled between embarrassment and growing acceptance. Emotion welled up. Being desired so openly awakened something long buried deep within her. As Ceres prepared to continue, Shizuko met his gaze, her heart beating faster with anticipation. Fingers intertwined, she closed her eyes, letting quiet emotions settle in the stillness between them. A wave of sensation broke through restraint. Physical closeness intensified the bond they hesitated to name. Movements grew more deliberate. Neither resisted the closeness as their connection deepened under the weight of shared longing. Embraces tightened. Their bodies remained locked. Not just in desire, however, in something unspoken yet mutual. Overwhelmed by rising tension, he called her name, releasing more than just energy. However, something deeply buried inside. Overwhelmed by sensation, she trembled, her body reacting with intensity she hadn't anticipated. Exhaustion lingered in the air, yet the quiet between them carried something unresolved. Taking initiative, she shifted roles, now seeking connection on her own terms. Movements became deliberate. Her expression reflected both focus and growing emotional vulnerability. Within her thoughts, certainty formed. This bond had become something she could no longer live without. Morning light filtered through the windows as she slowly stirred, piecing together fragments of memory. Awake now, she turned to find him beside her, warmth still lingering between them. Realization set in. She sat up, unsure how long she had slept. His calm expression softened her nerves, while his words left her flustered and embarrassed. Silence followed until one reached for the sheet's responsibility, waiting beyond their shared moment. A playful suggestion broke the calm, and their closeness silently resumed beneath the morning light. Afterward, dressed and composed, she spoke with faint exhaustion while he offered a light-hearted apology. She expressed gratitude through a tired smile, while he reflected awkwardly on his own eagerness. To ease the mood, he presented a heartfelt meal, its charm reflected in her smile. They sat together again, letting quiet comfort replace tension as they shared a simple breakfast. While they shared a quiet meal, she offered unwavering support for whatever path he would choose. In his thoughts, a peaceful future with her experience like an ideal worth pursuing. Yet complications loomed. Taking that path might cause tension with others connected to his past. She proposed visiting her old home, hinting at unfinished matters she was ready to confront. He hesitated, unsure of her intent, however knew better than to ask for details. He expressed a quiet wish to return to Jamuna village and live a peaceful life. She agreed, sharing the same desire, and hoping to reconnect with familiar friends from the past at the village. They observed Haruka, now devoted entirely to her husband's restaurant duties. Sayo remained burdened by endless chores, stuck in a demanding household with little recognition. Misaki, too, continued her quiet routine, managing tasks while her husband left her unnoticed. She silently acknowledged how deeply their friends' marriages had fallen into disrepair. He grinned faintly, sensing something left unsaid behind her calm voice. While uncertain about his purpose, he gazed forward to arriving in the village. As the day passed, light-hearted thoughts filled the air once more. Zect was shocked to hear their funds had vanished, confusion spreading among his companions. They speculated nervously, uncertain if Ceres had abandoned them or if something else had happened. Seeking answers, the party visited the guild, where they learned the church hadn't sent any money. At the church, a priest calmly explained the issue. Zect had failed to submit the necessary paperwork. Baffled, Zect stared in disbelief, completely unaware such formalities even existed or were his responsibility. The priest explained that Zect needed to submit records of spending and accomplishments to receive funds. Everyone denied filling such forms, yet the documents somehow still had Zect's signature on them. It was revealed that Ceres had been handling the paperwork under Zect's name without telling him. A past memory came back. Ceres casually inquired for signatures without clarifying their importance or purpose. Lacking proper documents, Zect reluctantly accepted a small stipend barely covering their group's monthly necessities. Zect assigned Mel to handle future paperwork, as the church wouldn't provide support without documentation. Despite her hesitation, Mel accepted the task. While the pile of forms overwhelmed her instantly, she protested, demanding to be excused from other chores if burdened with this new responsibility. Zect agreed reluctantly, allowing Mel to focus solely on paperwork while the others managed camp life. Meanwhile, Zect complained about the food, clearly missing the days when Ceres handled everything silently. After Zect criticized the food, tensions rose as everyone shifted blame and refused to take over cooking. Despite the bickering, all three women longed for Ceres's meals, each craving a different favorite dish. Zect suggested eating Ceres's food in the city, only to realize it's only served in luxury spots. A few days later, the group arrived in town, exhausted and visibly worn down by travel. Zect reflected on their decline: no money, no hygiene, realizing they couldn't keep going like this any longer. Zect understood even their hair had fallen into disarray, something Ceres once managed without complaint. In frustration, he suggested going to the church for support. However, Maria immediately rejected the idea. Faced with resistance, Zect backed down while Mel proposed earning money directly through guild work. Regret sank in deeper. Ceres had handled every responsibility they now struggled to understand or perform. Haunted by failure, Zect remained in silence, wondering how everything had fallen apart so swiftly. In high spirits, the woman clung to Ceres, confident in their plans to earn money together. Each morning, Ceres patiently washed and dried her hair with care, using a special cleansing potion. Such gentle devotion stunned her. Most husbands wouldn't do half as much for their wives. Elsewhere, the hero's father mocked his son for foolishly casting out someone so capable and kind. The group vented their frustrations, still bitter over Zect's arrogance and lack of gratitude towards Ceres. Ceres prepared breakfast with a smile, his kindness shining through even during routine morning tasks. Even when someone was sick, he displayed concern, unlike Zect, who ignored their condition entirely. Wanting to make her joyful, Ceres cooked and cared for her, bringing joy to her days. Their nights were warm, their days peaceful. His gentle nature made every moment feel fulfilling. In a heartbeat, she'd choose to save Ceres. No hesitation, his worth far outshone the hero's. Shizuko found peace beside Ceres, wrapped in warmth, knowing she belonged completely to him. Out in the forest, Ceres remained victorious among slain beasts, proving his strength in silence, used to survival. He explained how hunting became necessary after losing support from the hero's party. Being a magic warrior left him without aid, forcing him to handle every expense alone. Despite fighting alongside heroes, he completed odd jobs just to survive unrecognized, however never bitter. As she comforted him, Shizuko acknowledged the weight of the burdens he'd silently carried alone. Ceres recalled slaying wyverns and dragons. His strength developed through constant struggle and harsh necessity. Despite his skills, he was relegated to the sidelines, never granted the power others received freely. To Shizuko, Ceres' strength rivaled even legendary heroes. His humility only made his value clearer. After submitting their report, a guild receptionist unexpectedly halted Ceres, requesting he wait for something important. Ceres learned he was still listed under the hero party despite forming a new one. The receptionist explained she had only created a subgroup within the main hero registry. Although she hadn't told Zect, she reassured them the arrangement wouldn't affect their operations. An official breakdown confirmed Ceres as the leader of a separate unit under Light of Hope. Their membership ensured continued privileges, prompting Shizuko to question her new status with amusement. Shizuko's affiliation was clarified. She officially belonged to the separate force under Ceres' command. As recognition of his strength, Ceres received the prestigious title of Dragon Slayer from the guild. Shizuko, curious, inquired if any other party members had achieved the same feat as Ceres. Only Ceres had slain dragons. Zect and Lyda merely faced demi-dragons and wyverns. The receptionist froze upon realizing Shizuko was not just a member, however, Zek's own mother. The receptionist panicked upon learning Shizuko was Zek's mother. However, Shizuko calmly clarified her current role. Registry records listed her as Ceres' slave, a fact she embraced with romantic affection. Confused and overwhelmed, the receptionist turned to Ceres, asking for a clear explanation of the situation. Anger surfaced as she denounced Zek, blaming him for past injustices and calling him an enemy. Eventually composed, she offered Ceres and Shizuko a proposal, hinting at something more to come. Ceres was surprised when Shizuko inquired if he wanted to enter a guild marriage with her. Embarrassed, she hesitated, unsure if such a formal step was right for someone her age. The receptionist explained the registry, an official bond through the guild to manage shared affairs. So Ceres compared it to a family registry and confidently offered to proceed with the marriage. Still blushing, Shizuko questioned his certainty, concerned about their age gap and the formality involved. So Ceres confessed he had fallen for Shizuko first, reassuring her with sincere, unwavering warmth. Smiling beside him, Shizuko accepted their future together with grace and a touch of affection. Becoming his legal wife brought her joy, while Ceres responded with quiet happiness. Although the guild charged extra fees, they completed the registry and received their symbolic rings. With hands joined and rings exchanged, their marriage was officially sealed before the guild. The guild erupted in applause as the receptionist cheered loudly to congratulate the newlyweds. Ceres and Shizuko strolled down the aisle together, surrounded by joyful well-wishers and friendly teasing. Standing proudly, Ceres raised his voice, inviting everyone to drink and celebrate without restraint. The receptionist announced the festivities were sponsored by the married couple, raising mugs with enthusiasm. As laughter echoed around her, Shizuko grinned deep down. She truly couldn't feel happier. Shizuko remembered her promise and vowed to fulfill it upon returning to the village. They had once pledged unity, sharing every sorrow and joy as one. Now surrounded by 3 more wives, she trusted Ceres would manage just fine. Ceres and Shizuko arrived in Jamura village, surrounded by peaceful homes and gentle countryside. He reflected on his upbringing, recalling how the villagers raised him after losing his parents. Their journey led them to Zekter, the very man who once sold Shizuko into slavery. At a familiar house, Ceres met the village chief, who greeted him with surprise and concern. Standing beside Ceres, Shizuko calmly greeted the chief, her presence causing visible shock and disbelief. The chief was stunned to see Shizuko alive, having believed Zekter's claim about her death. Faced with hesitation, Shizuko chose to confront the truth herself, determined to face Zekter directly. The chief reacted furiously, condemning Zekter as a criminal who deserved harsh punishment for his betrayal. News revealed Zekter had been taken by the feudal lord after failing to pay village taxes. Shizuko laughed loudly, amused by Zekter's downfall and satisfied with the justice fate had delivered. Shizuko's laughter finally subsided as both Ceres and the chief urged her to regain composure. She apologized with a calm breath, regaining control after her emotional outburst. Reflecting on her pain, she accepted Zekter's fate, believing his punishment was already far worse. Ceres silently agreed, realizing her words weren't exaggerated. Zekter's life had indeed collapsed completely. Exiled and enslaved in the mines, Zekter was now rejected even by his former village. Zekter, consumed by jealousy, wasted his son's money on luxury, ignoring the needs of the village. Despite everything, Ceres recalled a few warm memories from their past, while betrayal remained unforgivable. The chief acknowledged their growth, glad things ended in peace rather than in vengeance. Both were praised Ceres for his courage, and Shizuko for finding happiness she once believed impossible. Laughter followed as the chief teased Ceres, surprised he truly married the woman he once vowed to protect. With a playful grin, Ceres handed coins to the chief, lightening the mood with humor. The chief teased them about married life, suggesting they get some rest or even tire themselves further. Embarrassed laughter followed as the couple remained outside, their bond silently growing stronger with each moment. Eventually home, Shizuko grinned warmly, feeling peace return as she stepped into familiar surroundings. Choosing joy over resentment, she embraced her future beside Ceres, grateful for the love she found. After a long journey, they finally found a moment of peace and light-hearted teasing. A playful suggestion shifted the mood, hinting at something more personal behind their relaxed smiles. Gentle touches broke the stillness, their closeness revealing trust built through shared trials and private understanding. Tension escalated as their connection deepened, each movement expressing unspoken affection and long-suppressed desire. Emotion surged to a peak, their bond reaffirmed in quiet intensity beneath the surface of intimacy. Sunlight streamed through the window as they greeted the day, weary from yesterday's relentless pace. Amusement sparked between them, Noon had arrived unnoticed. She didn't mind his affection experienced sincere weighing the hour in their plans. He suggested patience while others remained busy with work, confident in his timing. He proposed visiting someone familiar, judging it to be appropriate now. She agreed with a smile, ready to accompany him and reconnect with old companions. Kazuma and his wife Haruka ran the village's only set meal restaurant, named after him. While not blood-related, he treated Kazuma like a brother and found comfort in their bond. Upon returning, they were greeted warmly. Familiar surroundings eased the tension that lingered from before. Haruka welcomed them with curiosity. Shizuko downplayed her hardship, silently crediting Ceres for her safety. Laughter broke out as playful teasing resumed, their closeness showing in every word and gesture. Light teasing continued between them, while affection was evident beneath the surface of every remark. She expressed joy over being cherished, her confidence growing from the warmth Ceres always displayed. Hints of unspoken feelings stirred tension. However, the moment passed with Haruka shifting focus to cooking. Kazuma greeted them warmly, reuniting with a smile that reflected shared history and lasting bonds. Memories surfaced as Ceres recalled Kazuma's support during his childhood, solidifying the strength of their brotherhood. He recalled a time when his heart silently leaned toward her, admiration left unspoken. While those feelings faded, he had long accepted them and moved forward without regret. While sipping his drink, he reflected on their bond and how perfect they were together. A sudden question caught him off guard, her playful tone cutting through his composure. Cornered by honesty, he admitted the truth: his feelings ran deeper than just sibling affection. He silently reflected on the past, confessing who first captured his heart and how it changed. In a world where age mattered less, their youthful looks still stirred passing curiosity and thoughts. Agreeing with a grin, he acknowledged her appearance hadn't aged a day, a rare charm. She basked in the compliment, subtly seeking more, her pride gently teasing his flustered reaction. While embarrassed, he clarified his feelings and defended both women, his sincerity shining through awkward remarks. Another man openly confessed his past hopes with Shizuko, believing he could be her joy. Ceres respected the boundaries around Kazuma's wife, recognizing her as family through deep mutual trust. While once smitten, he chose to support from afar, cherishing their sibling bond over desire. Shizuko's soft words hinted at change, silently challenging the certainty he once clung to. While doubts stirred, encouragement came unexpectedly, suggesting that hope might not be fully lost yet. While sipping tea, he considered the idea perhaps things could resolve without bitterness after all. A bold suggestion stunned him, her words teasing yet laced with unexpected seriousness. While joking about loneliness, she gave her quiet approval, trusting him with an unspoken choice. Afterward that night, closeness unfolded in silence, emotions exchanged without the need for words. Clarification followed tradition shaped their customs, and intentions weren't as scandalous as they first appeared. Uncertainty lingered as he questioned the deeper implications behind the village's traditional custom. Rules existed for a reason, and she emphasized that following them would ensure mutual respect. While hesitant, he was urged to prioritize what mattered now over social expectations. With a firm smile, she reminded him boundaries mattered, and within them, nothing was forbidden. The wife explained the rules of a traditional night visit, emphasizing respect and quiet approach. Afterward, the boy learned the rules were surprisingly lenient, while ignoring them could cause serious trouble. She grinned, hoping her actions would bring happiness to Haruka, her son's new companion. Before leaving, she encouraged him to stay focused and do his best during the visit. Conflicted, he remained outside the door, questioning himself despite just marrying Shizuko, with her full support creeping silently into the room. He questioned if her insistence meant this might actually succeed. Although unsure of Shizuko's intent, he believed this chance might bring both her and Haruka closer. Seeing her asleep, he chose to act, deciding to seize the opportunity without hesitation. Conflicted thoughts stirred. He wondered why Kazuma wasn't there, and assumed they shared a bed. Her exposed form left him tense, yet he remained still, trying to calm his nerves. Remaining still proved painful, and his legs started to go numb as he waited in silence. She woke up and turned, eyes locking on him in surprise and confusion. Rising cautiously, she questioned his name, trying to understand what he was doing there. Her tone softened, yet her eyes stayed sharp as she addressed him directly. She pointed out his position beside her, questioning if he truly understood its meaning. Ceres grinned nervously, unsure how to respond as her heart pounded under Haruka's gaze. Without warning, she smacked him hard, furious yet flustered by his clueless behavior. Standing up, Haruka demanded answers, mistaking the situation as some kind of joke at her expense. She launched a powerful kick, shouting that such behavior was utterly unacceptable. Despite her outburst, she declared she was calm, while Ceres backed away, pleading for peace. Haruka demanded an explanation, And just as Ceres tried to confess, she silenced him abruptly. Dismissing his words as a joke, she shouted. Refusing to believe his feelings were sincere, her tough expression cracked, revealing hurt. Even she experienced wounded by what seemed like mockery. Ceres started to speak the truth. However, someone called out, interrupting the tension in the room. A man entered, confused by the scene, calling Ceres' name with concern and suspicion. Ceres grinned blankly, resigned to his fate, convinced that this was the end for him, surrounded and pressured. He listened as Haruka warned their bond might be severed, depending on his answer. With everyone waiting, he hesitated, however knew he could no longer remain silent. He admitted he had feelings for Haruka, however gave up because she already had Kazuma. Haruka lashed out, furious and betrayed, while Kazuma watched in grim silence beside her. Kazuma silenced Haruka firmly, declaring this was a conversation between men that needed to happen. He reminded Ceres that love isn't easily abandoned, just like his own feelings for Haruka. Despite Ceres' hesitation, Kazuma pushed him to be honest and stop holding back. Ceres faced forward, determined, ready to reveal everything hidden in his heart. He admitted his jealousy, believing their smiles meant he never had a chance from the start. Kazuma acknowledged Ceres' feelings and, surprisingly, wished for both him and Haruka to find happiness. He reflected on Haruka's youth, noting she was still a mother despite her appearance and age, turning serious. Kazuma inquired the crucial question, did Ceres truly still love Haruka? Ceres admitted he didn't want to give up, believing love wasn't limited by age or status. With determination, he declared he'd confess his love if Haruka was willing to accept him. Ceres tried to deflect the topic. However, Kazuma demanded clarity on his feelings for Haruka. Driven by emotion, Ceres finally shouted his true feelings. He loved her. Without hesitation, Kazuma challenged the confession, warning how swiftly time would age Haruka, despite her youthful look. He questioned whether Ceres could love her even in old age, demanding lifelong commitment. Without backing down, Ceres declared he could. His feelings wouldn't change, no matter how much time passed. Kazuma turned to Haruka, asking what she believed, while she blushed silently, processing everything. Haruka questioned his feelings, reminding him she once cared for him as a baby. She recalled how young he was when he confessed love, unsure how to handle it now. Kazuma, ever blunt, shouted she'd be an old hag, causing both shock and embarrassment. Despite their doubts, Ceres remained firm, declaring his will to stay and love her always. Ceres gazed straight ahead, voice steady, declaring that despite everything, his feelings remained unchanged. Haruka blushed deeply, realizing the depth of his sincerity and how much it affected her. Kazuma gave a nod of approval and stepped aside, ready to leave them to talk alone. However, his sudden challenge startled both of them, pushing the situation into uncomfortable territory. Ceres steadied Haruka, catching her gently, the tension lingering as the moment grew unexpectedly awkward. Haruka challenged Ceres to prove his love directly, shocking everyone with her bold demand. Despite her hesitation, Ceres agreed, leaving her flustered by his unexpected seriousness. He and Kazuma sealed the promise, while Haruka panicked at the unfolding situation. Tension filled the room as Ceres sat silently before her, eyes fixed with intent. Without hesitation, he gently lifted her up, causing a startled blush to rise on her face. She struggled to speak as he carried her closer, yet he pressed forward with calm resolve. Despite lingering feelings for another, he confessed his desire, catching her completely off guard. Flustered and overwhelmed, she tried to regain control. However, her heart had already betrayed her. He closed the distance, placing his hand gently against her cheek, eyes locked with hers. While words were few, her flushed face revealed an answer that needed no explanation. A quiet resolve guided her actions as she leaned in and met his lips. Their closeness deepened, unaware of the silent observer seated nearby, watching without expression. Moments later, the atmosphere grew heavier as boundaries blurred and hesitation faded between them. Alone in the room, she lay in quiet anticipation, trying to hide her nervousness. He approached with gentle admiration, offering words that made her face flush with mixed emotions. A moment of hesitation passed as he reached out, tension rising between them without restraint. Conflicted feelings surfaced. She urged caution, unsure if boundaries had already been crossed too far. Another presence nearby shattered the moment, prompting reflection and unresolved feelings between them both. A sudden closeness places both figures in an unfamiliar position, causing confusion and heightened awareness. Movement becomes hesitant, with restraint slowly giving way to instinct. Postures shift as balance changes, creating a fragile pause filled with conflicted emotion. Awareness deepens while restraint weakens under mounting tension. An internal struggle emerges between responsibility and desire. The situation reaches its peak as control slips further. Overwhelming sensations replace rational believed, leaving both caught between hesitation and surrender, unsure how far the moment will carry them. Tension escalated as emotions broke through restraint, their closeness driven by something deeper than impulse. In silence, they lingered, locked in a moment that neither dared to question too soon. Uncertainty surfaced behind flushed cheeks, her voice trembling under the weight of long-buried doubt. He answered with honesty, affirming what she needed to hear. Calming the storm in her chest, relief softened her expression. For the first time, she let herself feel whole again. Quiet admiration lingered as she regained composure, realizing how closely feelings had begun intertwining there. From the doorway, another presence observed calmly, measuring consequences before stepping fully into the room. Moments later, awareness settled as the situation clarified, embarrassment replacing intensity across the unmade bed. Responsibility tempered relief. Attention shifted toward boundaries, ensuring no harm followed the lapse afterward silently. With tension eased, resolve formed silently, suggesting growth would follow this fragile turning point ahead. With a calm voice, the man acknowledged their separation, making the situation unmistakably clear. Her tone remained steady, framing their connection as nothing more than a friendly understanding now. Time apart had changed things. Thoughts of starting over once seemed distant, yet no longer impossible. Memories led her back to someone who once meant something more than just a name. Doubt lingered. What if feelings hadn't changed? She questioned intentions, unsure whether to hope or dismiss. With a calm smile, he offered closure if feelings remained. He would step aside without protest. Despite hearing it earlier, she still struggled to accept the reality unfolding before her. Even as a child, his gaze carried a sense of attachment that never quite faded. Admitting it wasn't easy. However, truth now experienced lighter shared between the three of them. Old bonds acknowledged. He gave his blessing, encouraging a new beginning built on trust and care. He confessed his hope that she'd find someone better, someone who wouldn't lead her to sorrow. Now convinced, he believed Haruka's future might be brighter in different hands. Responsibility shifted as he stepped back, trusting the next chapter to unfold with courage and care. New possibilities opened as her tone hinted at playful yet bold suggestions for what may come. Still carrying old promises, she left the choice in his hands, eyes steady with expectation. Concerns about managing the restaurant rose. However, humor and outlandish plans swiftly shifted the mood. She teased him over his wording, while he casually dismissed offers of financial assist. Support between brothers surfaced naturally, one offering assist, the other accepting it with quiet gratitude hand in hand. They stepped forward, each vowing to bring joy into the days ahead. Side by side, they grinned with calm certainty, ready to face their future. Together at last, while walking through town, they noticed Shizuko's absence and experienced an urge to speak with her. With a warm smile, she addressed Ceres, hinting she still watched from a distance. Their steps took a nostalgic turn, leading them back to a place filled with shared memories. She recalled their childhood, a time when care came freely, even if responsibilities were light. Under moonlight, reflections surfaced. Growth was undeniable. Ceres had changed, and she acknowledged it without hesitation. She teased him about the nostalgic detour, unaware his intentions carried more weight than scenery. With a calm smile, he dismissed the assumption, hinting something more heartfelt was coming. Now alone, he revealed, there was something important he'd been waiting to say in private. Past memories carried value. However, he wanted to start building something new side by side, reaching out. He expressed it clearly. He wished to walk forward with her. As partners, she remained still, caught off guard by his bold words, yet her hand reached forward. Under moonlight, she embraced him tightly, holding on to the warmth that answered her unspoken thoughts. Although the night stretched on, neither wanted to leave. Closeness mattered more than returning, resting together. They found peace logic forgotten. However, a quiet happiness settling firmly between them. Mel sat at her desk, buried in scrolls. Frustration mounting as ink stained her hand. She struggled to draft reports detailing supplies and plans, questioning how Ceres ever handled this. Papers flew as she snapped, overwhelmed by the church's endless expectations and constant nitpicking. Meanwhile, Zek dodged chores, refusing laundry duty with an excuse that made Lyda roll her eyes. In truth, his sword barely required care, unlike the burdens Mel silently endured every day. Lyda voiced her frustration, explaining how her weapon dulled swiftly and nearly got her killed. In another room, Maria refused to move, rejecting any task before it was even spoken. Sprawled on the bed, she yelled her refusal again, unwilling to lift a finger to assist. Zek finally snapped, blaming himself for the chaotic imbalance within their struggling and unmotivated party. In truth, his role, often overlooked, carried the weight no title or power could match. Gathered in the room, the group hesitated as Zect posed the question about Ceres returning. Each started acknowledging his value, his practicality, skill, and how irreplaceable he had truly been. Zect made the decision official, declaring that they must reunite with the one they cast out. Yet doubt surfaced, guilt lingered. Memories of their betrayal started weighing heavier than expected. When reminded of the necklace incident, Zect faltered, realizing their mistreatment may have cut too deep. Maria confronted Zect, accusing him of knowingly humiliating Ceres and questioning his ability to forgive. The weight of her words hit him. He admitted he would have retaliated if roles were reversed. Even after being cast out, Ceres had shown grace, offering kind words as he strolled away. The party now recognized their fault, wondering how to amend the damage they had caused. They set out together, vowing to return what they stole Ceres' dignity home and sense of belonging. Zect considered returning Mel to Ceres, however, swiftly dismissed it as far from sufficient. Lyda and Maria became the next candidates in his desperate mental negotiation. Faced with their reactions, he froze, overwhelmed by the implications of what he had caused. Alone again, he remained conflicted, uncertain of what action could truly set things right. Elsewhere, Mel reflected, amused by her son's transformation, uncertain when he became so complicated. Sitting at the tavern, the women shared drinks, acknowledging how much had happened along the way, despite everything. One of them grinned, expressing genuine happiness in having ended up with Ceres. Sayo, Mel's mother, admitted it experienced unfair, surprised she'd fallen for someone so much younger. Even knowing his preferences, Misaki couldn't assist feeling conflicted over the unexpected relationship. Their conversation turned nostalgic, recalling Ceres' early charm and how mature he had always seemed. Sayo confidently stated that Ceres' love had always been directed at her as a woman. She treated him seriously, despite the age gap, seeing him as someone emotionally mature. Misaki agreed, noting how Ceres was different and impossible to treat like a typical child. Shizuko, however, only saw him as a strange, however perfect son, not as a man. With a knowing smile, Sayo hinted, that's when Shizuko's feelings had silently begun to change. Sayo hesitated, cheeks flushed, as she boldly inquired about Shizuko's intimate life with Ceres. Laughter broke the tension, the women deflecting with jokes about their age and fading allure. Shizuko blushed, recalling tender nights filled with unspoken passion and overwhelming closeness she never expected. While embarrassed, she admitted she had no regrets. Her smile revealed quiet contentment. Even amid teasing, admiration surfaced. They recognized the deep bond Shizuko shared with someone who saw beyond age. The women opened up about neglect in their marriages, revealing years of distance and quiet hurt. Suspicion lingered. Sayo questioned whether Shizuko's honesty was born from sincerity or possessiveness. Shizuko, however, offered reassurance with a smile, reminding them of the promise they once made. Their bond echoed again, united in hardships, laughter, and even love, no matter how complicated, without shame. She revealed a mark on her neck, proof shared only out of loyalty. The vivid marks on Shizuko's skin left the others stunned, their reactions a mix of disbelief and envy. Sayo's tone shifted, questioning whether Shizuko was flaunting her happiness for validation or attention. Unbothered, Shizuko calmly revealed she had arranged for Ceres to visit another woman that night. Doubts arose. However, Shizuko explained her reasoning, seeing what others refused to acknowledge in Haruka's situation. Ceres, she insisted, didn't just care, he truly saw them, not as burdens, however as women. With a serious gaze, Shizuko leaned in, her voice quiet, however unwavering. She stretched her arms wide, asking them to let go of their unhappy marriages and reclaim themselves. The others froze, stunned by the directness of her plea. She urged them to be seen again, not as neglected wives, however as women deserving warmth and affection. Her words struck deep. Hope stirred silently behind a veil of disbelief and longing. Sayo's heart fluttered at the believed, unsure if such hope could truly be real. Misaki, however, remained guarded, warning that betrayal would be met with consequences. Shizuko remained firm, insisting every word was honest, and invited them to reclaim their former selves. Old titles came back: Berserk, Black Knight, Ice Princess. Their youthful vigor sparked once more. Laughter echoed. United again, they embraced not just freedom, however their forgotten strength and sisterhood. A quiet gathering among women shifts when the conversation turns to Ceres. Shizuko's expression grows serious. She admits her anger toward her son, no longer able to hide her disappointment behind pleasantries. While his actions were influenced by others, her son's decision to expel Ceres caused lasting regret, while others relaxed. Ceres handled everything silently, shouldering burdens and expenses, without complaint or support. Abandoned and cast out, Ceres strolled away alone. Shizuko, filled with guilt, couldn't forgive what happened. News of Maria's actions left her companion stunned. Understanding the full weight, she frowned in silence. Mel's involvement only deepened the tension. Shizuko started forming her own quiet plan for justice. Her decision became clear to marry Ceres along with the others, and leave the village behind. Meanwhile, Zect came back home, unaware his actions had severed ties that would never mend again. With calm resolve, the women acknowledged the cost. Their loyalty now belonged to Ceres alone. One woman predicted her husband would replace her with a slave, should she choose to leave. Shizuko, smiling calmly, shifted the topic. Their focus moved to how this would affect the children. A hypothetical was posed: what if the one abandoned turned out stronger than the hero himself? Concern rose over age and ability, yet the idea of supporting Ceres gained quiet agreement. Laughter broke tension. Old titles resurfaced, and memories reminded them they were still capable warriors. Teasing banter continued as another former warrior, Misaki, was called out by her old title. Afterward that night, Ceres sat surrounded. Their decision was clear: form a party built on love. Confidence in Ceres' kindness reassured them, leaving the past behind, no longer experienced uncertain. Shizuko gave a final nod. The plan was agreed upon without hesitation. Without delay, she invited them to witness something. Proof awaited just beyond their quiet home. Outside the house, Shizuko insisted on silence as they approached the door with cautious steps. Inside, a girl hurried down the hall, cheeks flushed, calling for Ceres with urgency. She entered boldly, surprising Ceres in a moment that caught them both off guard and unprepared. Despite the setting, tension built swiftly, and boundaries blurred as emotions overtook hesitation. What started abruptly unfolded further inside, unspoken feelings driving their impulsive and intimate connection forward. Inside a quiet room, tension rises as bodies press close, nervous resolve mixing with hesitation and urgency. Against the door, imbalance follows, breath quickening, while restraint weakens under mounting emotional pressure. Shock flashes across faces as awareness spreads, realization arriving alongside embarrassment and conflicted reactions. From the hallway, others witness the scene, curiosity, surprise, and rivalry blending into a charged atmosphere. Afterward, flushed expressions linger, confidence replacing doubt, while unspoken consequences silently settle between everyone involved. Outside, Shizuko steadies herself before others, exhaustion showing as suspicion silently gathers around her nearby. Inside, blame surfaces as Shizuko confronts the setup, arms crossed, resolve firm, despite lingering tension. Stares become crowded when Haruka appears smiling, instincts warning danger while Ceres senses complicated intentions. A quiet gathering among women shifts when the conversation turns to Ceres. Shizuko's expression grows serious. She admits her anger toward her son, no longer able to hide her disappointment behind pleasantries. While his actions were influenced by others, her son's decision to expel Ceres caused lasting regret, while others relaxed. Ceres handled everything silently, shouldering burdens and expenses, without complaint or support. Abandoned and cast out, Ceres strolled away alone. Shizuko, filled with guilt, couldn't forgive what happened. News of Maria's actions left her companion stunned. Understanding the full weight, she frowned in silence. Mel's involvement only deepened the tension. Shizuko started forming her own quiet plan for justice. Her decision became clear to marry Ceres along with the others, and leave the village behind. Meanwhile, Zect came back home, unaware his actions had severed ties that would never mend again. With calm resolve, the women acknowledged the cost. Their loyalty now belonged to Ceres alone. One woman predicted her husband would replace her with a slave, should she choose to leave. Shizuko, smiling calmly, shifted the topic. Their focus moved to how this would affect the children. A hypothetical was posed: what if the one abandoned turned out stronger than the hero himself? Concern rose over age and ability, yet the idea of supporting Ceres gained quiet agreement. Laughter broke tension. Old titles resurfaced, and memories reminded them they were still capable warriors. Teasing banter continued as another former warrior, Misaki, was called out by her old title. Afterward that night, Ceres sat surrounded. Their decision was clear: form a party built on love. Confidence in Ceres' kindness reassured them, leaving the past behind, no longer experienced uncertain. Shizuko gave a final nod. The plan was agreed upon without hesitation. Without delay, she invited them to witness something. Proof awaited just beyond their quiet home. Outside the house, Shizuko insisted on silence as they approached the door with cautious steps. Inside, a girl hurried down the hall, cheeks flushed, calling for Ceres with urgency. She entered boldly, surprising Ceres remained before a modest home, determined to speak with Kaito, Seo's husband. A warm welcome from a smiling woman eased his tension as he stepped forward. Despite her kind expression, anxiety lingered in his chest. Inside the house, Kaito sat casually, drink in hand, greeting Ceres with a relaxed tone. Kaito had prepared a full meal, startled by the gesture. Ceres hesitated, unsure how to respond. Ceres questioned his place at the table, however Kaito remained calm, pouring a drink. He invited Ceres to begin. Gratitude filled the young man's voice, their glasses met. Mutual respect settled in as they spoke. Ceres acknowledged Kaito's past support. In the fields, Kaito watched over young Ceres as he practiced with a hoe. While Ceres credited him for everything, Kaito corrected him firmly. Memories resurfaced as they talked. Every time an adventurer passed through the village, Kaito had pushed Ceres forward, asking them to teach him. Gratitude filled Ceres' voice. He acknowledged more than just combat training, he appreciated every lesson, every opportunity. Back at the table, he believed about how different Kaito was from his previous harsh mentors. Reflecting deeper, Ceres remembered being an orphan. His bond with Kaito hadn't just been guidance, it was survival. More than training, it was connection. Ceres leaned forward, ready to speak honestly. To him, the villagers were like family. Kaito, already aware of the visitor's purpose, calmly suggested they get to the point. He mentioned Sayo's name. Without hesitation, Ceres confirmed it. Behind him, Sayo peeked from the doorway, listening silently. Kaito didn't hesitate. With a serious expression, he gave his answer. If Ceres truly wanted Sayo, he wouldn't stop him. Thoughts drifted to the past. When Sayo married into the family, Kaito's father was still alive. Their marriage had never been a joyful one. The elder's pressure had been constant. Every day, he demanded a daughter to continue the line. After his father passed away, Kaito tried to support Sayo, however resentment had already built. Kaito confessed his own guilt. He had sided with his father, shouting at Sayo and worsening her unhappiness. In his view, the outcome wasn't surprising. From Ceres' perspective, Kaito never crossed a physical line. Harsh words were frequent, however deeper than blame. The issue was emotional distance. Recognizing Ceres' feelings, Kaito handed him a pouch. He acknowledged the boy's sincerity and long-standing affection for Sayo, granting his approval without further resistance. Another matter arose. While Kaito had once hoped Ceres would marry Mel, that future had slipped away. With calm finality, Kaito told Ceres he would offer Sayo in place of his daughter. Tears gathered in her eyes. She silently apologized, calling him dear. Her voice filled with long-suppressed regret. Kaito gazed stunned. He insisted he was the one who should be apologizing. Failing to shield her and speaking harshly, Ceres inquired what Kaito planned to do next. With a raised brow, Kaito grinned as if a mischievous belief had taken root. A booming laugh erupted. Kaito joked about chasing young brides after the depressing hag left. Sayo trembled while Ceres gazed on, half shocked, half exasperated by the absurdity. Sayo questioned Kaito's earlier apology, confused by the shift in tone. He admitted guilt, however, made no effort to soften his next words. Without hesitation, Kaito insulted her again. His preference for younger women was voiced with cruel clarity. The pain she'd carried back finally broke through. With trembling fists and tears streaming, she shouted her hatred without restraint. Annoyed by the emotional display, Kaito told Ceres to take her and leave. Despite her fury, Ceres gently pulled Sayo close. While she screamed her hatred, he simply suggested they leave and find happiness elsewhere. As Sayo silently finished cleaning, Ceres stepped in and inquired if she was done. Her silence lingered. Sitting down, she wiped away a tear and sighed. What she expected to be an emotional goodbye turned into something completely different. She raised her voice, venting her feelings. Instead of walking out on her own terms, it experienced like she'd been dismissed. Ceres extended his hand, smiling. He reminded her they had finished what needed to be done. A new life together waited, simple, free, and theirs to enjoy. Sayo turned back, still slightly flustered. However, her voice softened. She apologized for the delay. Her mood already beginning to shift towards something lighter. Ceres noticed a worn-out broom resting near the wall, and curiously inquired Sayo about it. It gazed old, however oddly significant. She picked it up, smiling with fondness. Memories resurfaced as she explained how she once practiced magic with it as a child. A playful grin appeared on her face. With a teasing voice, she inquired if he wanted to take a ride. Shock struck Ceres as the broom suddenly took off. From below, he watched in disbelief, shouting in awe. Flying wasn't something he had expected from her. Still holding the broom confidently, Sayo confirmed it. She reminded him that she was, after all, a wizard together. They soared above the rooftops. Ceres carried on tightly, stunned by how casually Sayo maneuvered through the air. She explained that even Mel, talented as she was, couldn't fly. Sayo's spells were powerful. Ceres compared their abilities. While he could use a spell like airwalk, it didn't allow him to reach such heights suspended in the night sky. He started to understand her background. Sayo's past as an S-class adventurer made perfect sense now. Her skill was beyond anything ordinary. Gazing forward, he inquired if she had calmed down. Despite everything, he wanted to make sure she was okay as they drifted silently above the world. Kaito silently admitted that after raising his child and growing old, he expected to grow old alongside his wife and die with her. Sayo reflected on how she had once accepted that life. He treated her like a servant and she assumed she'd care for him until the end simply because there was nowhere else to go. Learning about Ceres from Shizuko changed everything. For the first time in years, she saw a path forward. Looking back, she acknowledged her frustration. However, truthfully, if neither of them depended on the other anymore, nervous laughter filled the air. Ceres insisted he would never leave her. She inquired if he truly meant it. As they climbed higher into the night sky, Ceres grew nervous. Sayo seemed completely at ease, reminiscing about her conversation with someone from her past. Turning toward him, she leaned in before he could gather his thoughts. She reminded him he hadn't proposed yet. Ceres froze. Her voice was soft, however firm. Despite everything they'd been through, she was still waiting for him to ask properly. Instead, she pressed further. If he loved her since childhood, she wanted to know exactly why. Her question wasn't just playful, it was sincere. He blushed uncontrollably as she teased him, breathing into his ear and squeezing his arm. Sayo's playful teasing backfired. Surprised by her own reaction, she suddenly froze midair. Ceres instinctively grabbed her to steady the flight. She lost focus completely. The closeness startled her, overwhelmed by how long it had been since anyone touched her. The broom wobbled and their altitude dropped fast. Crashing through the trees, they fell into the forest below. Thankfully, branches slowed the impact. Ceres swiftly inquired if she was hurt while catching his breath. He opened his eyes and found himself above her, stunned by the moment. Their clothes were scuffed. However, both remained still, eyes locked. Neither moved away. Instead, Ceres leaned in, gently embracing her. No words followed, just a quiet closeness that sealed the tension between them. Lying close, Ceres silently whispered her name. Sayo's eyes met his, both caught in the moment. He gently reached for her hand. In the still forest, he admitted this might be their only private time. She moved closer, smiling playfully. Wrapping her arms around him, she inquired if this was where they'd truly begin. In the quiet forest, Ceres and Sayo shared a charged silence. Kneeling close, his emotions overwhelmed caution. Before the moment deepened, Sayo gently halted him. Rising to her feet, she cast a brief glance back. With steady focus, she lifted her hand and summoned a barrier spell into the night air, protecting their perimeter. She ensured no beasts or threats would disturb them. The barrier shimmered across the forest floor, subtle however effective. Assured of safety, Sayo turned and offered a quiet smile. With the world sealed away, closeness came back. Breathing deepened, hands moved gently, and warmth spread between them. Eyes closed, and breath uneven. Sayo reacted to the intensity of their growing closeness. Every movement brought a new ripple of sensation. Ceres pressed closer, his hands guided by instinct. The atmosphere shifted, no longer hesitant, however drawn by unspoken understanding between them. She noticed his rising urgency, her gaze lowering in acknowledgement. While her words teased, her expression revealed acceptance more than resistance. Lowering herself with calm intent, Sayo responded to his need. Ceres trembled, overwhelmed by her gentle initiative and complete focus. Leaning in, she deepened the moment. Hands wandered, touch slowed. What started as tension now carried a shared rhythm of desire and trust. Breathing heavily, Sayo met his eyes with quiet confidence. She made no attempt to hide her intent. He knelt without hesitation. Her body tensed as sensation surged, the barrier carried, leaving them in silence. Supportive hands lifted her slightly. She whispered his name, overwhelmed by the intensity steadily building between them. Against the tree, he carried her tightly. No words were exchanged, however their movements stayed in rhythm. Time blurred. Her arms clung to him as closeness peaked. Passion moved steadily without interruption or hesitation. Deep within the forest, away from any watchful eyes, they paused under the trees. She clung to him, her expression a blend of longing and resolve. Their closeness deepened, movement rhythmic, and breathless urgency rose between them. As stillness came back, her body trembled. His arms remained wrapped around her, holding her through the aftermath. Afterward, they sat together on the grass, avoiding each other's gaze. The forest around them came back to stillness. She grinned faintly and suggested it remain a secret. He nodded once, agreeing without words, and the path behind them grew silent once more. As they prepared to return, the broken staff on the ground revealed the consequences of their earlier fall. Continuing on foot became their only option. With the barrier nearing its end, they remained alert, knowing danger lurked beyond the trees. Two feral beasts emerged from the shadows, snarling and ready to strike. He instinctively moved to defend. However, she raised her hand before he could finish his warning. With calm precision, she activated her magic. A wave of frost erupted beneath the monsters, locking their limbs in a frozen snare. Sharp icicles rained from above, crashing down in a merciless flurry. The creatures were silenced in an instant, shattered and defeated. After the encounter, they resumed their path through the forest. Her confident smile contrasted his uneasy nod. However, neither voiced their thoughts aloud. As they strolled, he reflected silently on her skills. She fought with ease, casting fast, effective spells and striking with precision. Their progress halted when a towering beast emerged. Larger and fiercer than before, it radiated a stronger presence. Without hesitation, she raised her hand and invoked another spell. A powerful current of freezing energy spiraled toward the enemy, encasing the monster in a burst of chilling force. The beast remained stunned, struggling however unharmed. Shock crossed his face. With a small smile, she proudly claimed the spell as her original creation. Despite the complex nature of the technique, she made it sound simple. He listened, impressed, however slightly overwhelmed, his mind lingering on how easily she controlled such dangerous magic. As they continued walking, he noticed something off. Her expression shifted when he pointed out a familiar landmark. She hesitated for a moment, offering a half-hearted excuse. He pieced the signs together and silently voiced the question they both dreaded: were they lost? The silence between them grew heavy, turning toward her. He inquired directly if she truly knew the way. Ceres had noticed how the women in the village chose quiet lives, despite their strength. Living peacefully seemed out of place for warriors capable of forcing their way through any obstacle. Wandering through the forest afterward, he reflected on their pasts. Something hidden remained untold. Hours passed. The trail gazed familiar. When Sayo hesitated again, he started to question their direction. The uneasy expression on her face confirmed his suspicion. They'd been circling for a while, and despite her confident steps, they were clearly off course. Trying not to sound accusing, he inquired if she truly knew the way. His voice lowered, unsure whether she was lost or just distracted. Sayo leaned gently against him, her voice calm, however sincere. Time alone meant more to her than any path or destination. Hearing her subtle confession, he lowered his eyes. Guilt clung to him. Yet admiration for her honesty softened his expression. Stepping forward, he closed the distance between them. With her name on his lips, he reached out, not with doubt, however with quiet certainty. From behind, his arms wrapped around her. No hesitation remained. He voiced his feelings clearly, asking not for the moment, however, for forever. Their hands clasped gently. Her smile, bright and steady, carried no doubt. She accepted his wish, no words wasted. While walking together, Sayo reflected on the complicated truth she had taken her daughter's boyfriend. Despite that, she displayed no hesitation. As they arrived home, her cheerful voice echoed through the doorway, masking any lingering guilt with a smile. Inside, the other women greeted them with suspicion and teasing. Unspoken questions hung in the air, aimed more at Ceres than her. Ceres stepped into the quiet shop, taking a moment to observe the shelves of supplies. The cozy general store, which doubled as a food vendor, belonged to Shudo and Misaki. He was welcomed warmly by Misaki, who had anticipated his visit. Shudo glanced up from his book, acknowledging Ceres' presence. With a relaxed smile, Shudo greeted him casually. His tone carried ease, hinting at a long-standing familiarity. Shudo moved to the counter and reached for something, insisting Ceres relax. Misaki watched silently as Shudo prepared what he had been saving specifically for the occasion. From behind the counter, Shudo revealed a bottle of brandy. Shudo leaned back with confidence, praising Ceres for his sharp understanding. In the entire village, few ever truly related to him. Despite being seen as eccentric, Shudo had deep knowledge of fine items and uncommon intellect. Years earlier, Ceres sat beside Shudo, pen in hand. While reincarnated, many memories had faded. By the age of 5, Ceres had mastered writing, an achievement that even Shudo considered remarkable. Misaki, listening nearby, acknowledged the impact Shudo had on Ceres' growth. Their bond was built on mutual respect. While Shudo read, Ceres managed the store. They supported each other in quiet, practical ways, forming a partnership that shaped Ceres' early life. Shudo raised his glass, savoring the taste of the drink. In another setting, he could have been a renowned scholar rather than a misunderstood man in a quiet village. Ceres responded with appreciation, enjoying the relaxed atmosphere. Moments like these with Shuto and Kazuma remained rare, however. Welcome reflecting on their conversations, Shuto admitted that speaking with others brought little joy. Only a few truly understood him. With a calm tone, Shuto confessed his shortcomings as a husband and father. Caring for Maria had always experienced burdensome to him. Misaki stepped forward, cutting through the chatter. She reminded Ceres of the real reason he came, and he silently acknowledged it. Misaki gave her consent without hesitation. Standing firm, she told Ceres he could take her with him. Shoto echoed the same sentiment. No longer seeing himself as a husband, he reaffirmed what he had stated before. His feelings for Misaki had faded long ago. Since Maria's birth, their emotional distance only grew, leaving their relationship cold. Ceres lowered his gaze, listening closely. Shuto acknowledged what had been silently known, that Ceres had feelings for Misaki for some time. Relaxed now, both men faced each other across the table. Ceres inquired if Shuto had known, and the answer came with a smirk. A memory resurfaced. Misaki once bathed the two boys together. Her tone was light, however Ceres clearly flustered. Shuto calmly brought up Ceres' past, noting his early loss and the natural longing for maternal care. Sitting beside Misaki, Ceres listened as Shuto rationalized the situation. Emotional connections like these weren't rare. Shuto offered reassurance, his tone shifting to a casual tease. He believed Ceres could bring Misaki happiness, even if their pairing seemed unusual. With a slightly strained smile, Misaki reacted to being lumped in with grandmothers. She carried her composure, if barely. Ceres inquired about Shuto's future plans, confident he already had something clever in mind. Shuto's enthusiastic response surprised them. With a grin, Shuto declared his intention to buy a young slave, leaving Ceres speechless and stunned. He explained further, seeking a smart girl eager to learn. Unlike Misaki or Maria, who he criticized openly, Shuto hoped for engaging conversation and companionship. Misaki calmly responded by slamming her hand down, masking her irritation with a smile. Ceres, caught in the tension, apologized for taking her away. Shuto brushed it off, stating she was no longer his wife and had no right to hit him. Ceres silently wished to leave with Misaki as swiftly as possible. Ceres watched Shuto's expression shift. With realization setting in, he softly spoke Misaki's name, piecing everything together. Misaki responded with a gentle smile. She agreed without hesitation, and Ceres invited her to return home with him. Shuto cheered at his newfound freedom. Now able to read endlessly, he teased them both, pretending it was all part of his plan. Outside the village, Ceres proposed a future together. He inquired Misaki to register as family once they resettled, prompting her quiet surprise and acceptance. They remained before the church. Ceres inquired if she needed anything, and Misaki's soft well hinted at an unspoken belief she carried close. Misaki spoke gently, recalling how she never had a proper wedding. Her husband had no interest, and she never wore a dress. A smile crossed her face as she admitted some of it was her own fault. Instead of a ceremony, they had simply signed documents. Ceres listened closely. She explained that in her youth, her muscular build made her self-conscious about dressing up. Hearing that, Ceres grew curious. The believed of Misaki in a dress struck him, and he couldn't hide his reaction. Suddenly flustered, Misaki worried about her current fitness. While unsure about fighting again, she still prepared for the journey ahead. Determined, Misaki declared her resolve to fight on the front lines. She couldn't allow herself to be a burden to Ceres. Before Ceres could stop her, she turned with a smile and ran off, announcing her intent to train. At a rocky field, she met with several women. Misaki apologized for gathering them on short notice. One of them remarked on how sudden it was, while another wasn't surprised, knowing Misaki's habit of acting swiftly. Facing a rock golem alone, Misaki explained she needed to regain her strength. Her companions offered a defensive buff, support, and lighthearted encouragement, while some preferred cheering with tea from the sidelines. Standing firm before the massive golem, Misaki raised her sword with a determined shout. She launched her attack. Her blade struck the stone beast with force. Dust exploded from the impact. However, the battle wasn't over yet. From the sidelines, one companion noted how Misaki's prime strength once ended such fights with a single blow. Struggling, Misaki pushed against the golem's weight. Her strength faltered, and she admitted the enemy was heavier than expected. Seeing her struggle, one of the women stepped forward. Unable to watch any longer, she decided it was time to step in and assist. Haruka joined the fight beside Misaki, launching herself forward. Their coordination forced the golem to defend from both sides. With excitement in her eyes, Haruka admitted she had also been craving action. She attacked without hesitation. Inspired by Haruka's energy, Misaki gripped her sword tighter. She knew she couldn't afford to fall behind, not when Ceres was watching. While Haruka distracted the enemy, Misaki delivered strong blows. Their strategy worked. Disruption and pressure kept the golem unbalanced. In the past, Misaki had trained with passion, however her efforts went unnoticed. Marriage hadn't brought her the recognition she once hoped for. Misaki recalled the days she spent with Ceres in the store. Those memories, filled with laughter and promises, gave her strength. Gripping her sword tightly, she shouted with renewed determination. This time she wasn't holding back. Her blade came crashing down. The ground cracked beneath her swing, sending shockwaves through the towering golem. From a distance, her companions watched the result. Her strike landed hard, drawing praise and sparking comments about her old strength returning. She remained tall, calm, and composed. No matter what challenges awaited or emotions Ceres carried, she resolved to face them all without hesitation. Ceres remained before the dress shop, staring at the elegant gown displayed in the window. A silent resolve formed. Inside, he praised the tailor's quick work and paid extra. His gratitude was sincere. This meant something important. Evening settled as Ceres prepared to return. Unable to ride back at night, he gauged his stamina and readied a magical return route. With airwalk, he launched himself skyward, calling Misaki's name and believed. His pace quickened with purpose as he dashed through the air. Ceres reflected. Misaki's quiet kindness reminded him of Shizuko, grounding his feelings with clarity. Misaki remained beside Shizuko, and their features were compared. Shizuko's traits hinted at a distant Japanese ancestry. Despite having no such lineage, Misaki's composure and grace reminded Ceres of traditional ideals, dignified, calm, and pure. He remembered her gentle embrace. Her willingness to accept everything brought him peace during moments of uncertainty. While lacking healing magic, Misaki's care was unmatched. She offered warmth and comfort before anyone else believed to act. Ceres grinned with newfound resolve. Now able to call her his wife, he vowed to cherish and protect her with all he had. Ceres made a firm vow. He would support Misaki fully, letting her live without restraint. Without slowing, he raced through the night sky. His goal was clear: reach Misaki and protect the life they chose. Misaki examined the worn-down gate, its creaks revealing years of neglect. Inside, she inspected the sword, silently acknowledging the disrepair. Ceres approached just as she finished her assessment. He came back from somewhere without clear explanation, brushing off her concern with a nervous smile. He leaned closer, his voice lowering. A strange request followed. He inquired her to meet him alone at the church. While confused by the odd invitation, Misaki didn't press further. Afterward, she arrived at the church as requested. The door creaked open without resistance. Finding it already unlocked added to the mystery, raising more questions than answers in her mind. The church remained quiet, just as Misaki expected. Her steps echoed as she searched the pews. Suddenly, something unexpected caught her eye. She froze, lips parted, and her hands rose to cover the shock on her face. Bathed in soft light, a pristine white dress remained waiting at the altar. Misaki approached slowly, unable to take her eyes off it. A gentle smile appeared as realization set in. The gesture surprised her deeply. Wearing such a dress again had never crossed her mind. Behind her, the door creaked open. Ceres entered, now dressed in a formal white suit. Under the moonlit sky, their silent meeting had just begun. Misaki remained beneath the soft light, the dress fitting perfectly around her form. She hesitated, unsure. Ceres, still dressed in white, offered a simple compliment. His expression carried sincerity without hesitation. He admitted he couldn't prepare everything. However, she responded with warmth. Her heart silently stirred with gratitude. Memories surfaced as he recalled their shared past. Running the shop together had meant much more to him than she understood. She remained still, overwhelmed by his final words. Her expression softened, touched by the honesty in his eyes. Tears welled in Misaki's eyes as emotions surged. Ceres' words had reached the depths of her heart. Without hesitation, he knelt and extended his hand. His voice was steady as he made his proposal. She grinned softly, reached forward, and gently accepted. Her answer came without pause, a quiet, confident yes. Before he could respond, his balance faltered. Her hand tightened around his, steadying him as he stumbled forward. Apparently, the magic he'd utilized earlier hadn't worn off properly. Mid-fall, he questioned if he'd overused his skill again. A sudden noise echoed through the church. Misaki rushed to find Ceres collapsed on the floor. He regained consciousness slowly, confused. Her arms supported him as she urged him to rest and not push further. Gratitude lit her expression. His efforts hadn't gone unnoticed, and she experienced the need to return that kindness. Ceres responded gently. Her presence, her answer, and her warmth had already given him more than enough. A teasing smirk formed on her lips. She commented on his condition, breaking the moment with light embarrassment. While helping with supplies, Misaki recalled moments from the past. Her expression suggested familiarity with his lingering gaze. Afterward, they sat facing one another. A question hung between them. Tentative, however bold, inviting trust. Ceres tried to respond, words catching in his throat. Misaki waited silently, her presence steady and calm. Without speaking further, she moved gently. Her gesture, while reserved, carried an unmistakable openness and emotional weight. Before anything progressed, she made a modest request. Ceres, flustered however earnest, nodded in quiet agreement. Within the quiet room, closeness grows as boundaries blur, hands lingering too long. Surprise mixing with restraint, heat rises steadily, breath quickens, resolve weakens, and awareness sharpens as attention centers on sensations rather than thoughts. Despite the setting's weight, shared guilt intertwines with desire, creating dangerous intimacy, where hesitation falters and trust forms briefly. Choice replaces doubt as initiative shifts. Vulnerability exposed, control rebalanced, and emotions surface openly, transforming conflict into acceptance while past betrayals momentarily lose their power over both hearts and memories. Afterward, calm settles gently, reflection follows, and satisfaction mingles with uncertainty, leaving a changed bond, heavier with consequences. Pressure builds as closeness deepens, posture shifts forward, control wavers, and tension sharpens while awareness narrows. Movement grows urgent, hands steady positions, shared rhythm forms, and physical proximity heightens vulnerability, pushing hesitation aside as both commit fully, guided by trust rather than caution or retreat possible. Weight shifts and closeness intensifies. Emotions surface without restraint, and reliance replaces doubt. Initiative changes hands, balance adjusts, and acceptance settles in, transforming uncertainty into resolve while vulnerability remains exposed. After intensity subsides, calm lingers, reflection follows, and the connection endures altered, marked by consequence. Intensity surged as she leaned forward, breath unsteady, heart racing. Their closeness left little room for hesitation, and physical signals replaced spoken thoughts. She gradually lowered herself over him, unfamiliar vulnerability mirrored in her face. There was no regret, only a strange clarity in her expression. While resting against him, she whispered her thanks. Emotions once buried now surfaced, giving weight to a private moment neither had planned for. Afterward, in different attire and setting, she brought up something simple, a practical need for their journey ahead, returning them to shared goals. Seated beside each other, they gazed ahead with new resolve. Talk shifted to future challenges, new bonds, and the adventures waiting beyond. She offered a warm, steady smile, eyes filled with calm certainty. A decision had already been made. Clad in her new gear, she stepped forward, extending her hand with conviction, choosing her path as a defender. He met her gaze, surprised at first, then nodded with quiet trust. A new understanding settled between them. Both came back together, now united by more than circumstance. Her words carried hope for what came next, with the team assembled. Discussion turned to future goals. Their journey wasn't just personal, it had become a shared mission. A bold proposal surfaced during their discussion: leave the village behind and take Ceres with them, reshaping everything. Doubt lingered. Leaving might not stop the others from returning. More decisive actions needed consideration. The group's energy shifted. One expressed impatience to act. Another hinted at proving Ceres' worth beyond past ties. Ceres remained quiet, thoughts pulled back by lingering memories. Familiar faces still carried a place in his heart. His companions, however, were resolute. They saw things differently, determined to reveal hard truths Ceres had yet to accept. Ceres remained surrounded by women who had all been hurt by the same person, while he once stayed silent to avoid conflict. He could no longer ignore what had been done. A sharp voice cut through the tension as one woman unleashed her anger. With firm conviction, she denounced Kazuma's actions, labeling him a disgrace. Another woman, calm yet weary, urged Ceres to see through the lies. Kaito, once praised for strength, had only worn a mask of virtue. A shadow of past abuse lingered in her gaze. She spoke with quiet resolve, naming him for what he was. Smiling grimly, the last woman echoed their judgment. The women remained tall, their stern expression surrounding Ceres. He hesitated, sensing they were being harsh for his sake. Shizuko calmly explained that she had retrieved the money Ceres had once entrusted to Kazuma. Shocked, Ceres reacted with disbelief. He raised his voice, defending his decision. That money had meant something. He believed it supported a dream. Without hesitation, a sharp slap interrupted his protest. The short-haired woman, clearly fed up, called out his foolishness. As Ceres sat stunned on the floor, she gazed him straight in the eye. Her words softened, recognizing his kindness. However, her gaze remained firm, warning him not to let that kindness blind him again. The women remained firm, rejecting any notion of debt or obligation. To them, Kazuma didn't deserve gratitude, let alone money. Shizuko posed a simple, however piercing question. If those three were trustworthy allies, why had Ceres never received payment for his efforts? Attempting to justify himself, Ceres recalled how he had chosen to support them. His reasoning came from loyalty, not logic. In a different scene, gold stacked high, revealing the true scale of the wealth involved. While others profited, Ceres had received nothing. The truth unfolded slowly while the money had been handed to the families, something experienced off. While the women remained silently, the truth became clear: those men had taken everything and shared nothing. No effort had been made to divide the wealth. Despite fair alternatives, greed had guided their choice. Shizuko clarified their intent. They didn't seek to erase Ceres' experiences, however needed him to see reality. In his memory, one of the men once displayed him kindness. That past moment didn't align with the present betrayal. Standing firm, Shizuko revealed the lasting selfishness of those men. Even abandoned by their wives, they continued hoarding wealth. Ceres had to face who they truly were. Ceres acknowledged the truth: what they did wasn't right. They had fed him, taught him, and spent time with him. Looking away, he hesitated. A belief formed slowly, weighed down by conflicting feelings and painful clarity. Eventually, he spoke from the heart. All the wealth in the world meant nothing. Those four women were all he truly desired. The women reacted with a mix of surprise and resignation, while others chased shallow dreams of power and status. Ceres had chosen something else. Ceres shared a meal with the four women, smiling warmly. Life with them was more fulfilling than any reward or title he could imagine. Reflecting on the past, he admitted his feelings had never wavered. No other woman had ever drawn his attention the way they did. Since acting on those feelings seemed impossible, he chose another path, one where fate would bring them together through other means. Tears welled up as the women listened. Even one of them choosing him had seemed unlikely, yet all four remained by his side. Ceres spoke with conviction. No amount of gold could compare to a simple, joyful life with them. His heart belonged nowhere else. Surrounded by smiles and warmth, Ceres understood he had been given something priceless. Their love was more than he ever dreamed of. Shizuko spoke firmly, dismissing the past and the men they once trusted. The present was all that mattered now. While calm on the surface, she admitted her own lingering anger. She had once wanted revenge for the suffering they endured. Each woman saw through the selfish futures their ex-husbands had planned. There was no place left for their children or the values they abandoned. Together, they no longer needed to look back. Proving Ceres' worth, building happiness in spite of betrayal, was the sweetest form of retribution. Despite everything he stated, Ceres experienced unheard. The women seemed more focused on revenge than reason, their bitterness only deepening. Shizuko laughed about wanting to deal with Zector personally. Others joined in, joking darkly about his fate, needing time to reflect. Ceres left town. Alone in a neighboring village, he sorted through conflicting feelings. He believed of the men who had once claimed to love them. Revenge didn't sit right with him, however. Doing nothing wasn't an option either. A plan started to form. His path brought him to a slave market. The sight left him uneasy. Something or someone inside would become the first step in whatever came next. A realization struck Ceres. The ex-husbands were likely preparing to purchase young slaves that suited their selfish desires. If he acted swiftly, he might prevent it. A new plan formed, one that could shift everyone's perspective. He arrived at a familiar estate, determined to begin. If done right, all five of them could live without lingering resentment. Count Gameruda greeted him, surprised yet pleased. The old noble remembered Ceres' past and spoke of his rise to a dragon slayer. Ceres remained composed. With a calm voice and measured tone, he acknowledged the Count's concern and handed over something important in offer. Perhaps, or a challenge yet to be revealed. Ceres presented a set of shimmering water dragon scales. The sight immediately drew the Count's attention. Gameruda, impressed by the rare item, offered a hefty sum. Ceres refused payment, explaining it was a gift. The scales had been taken from the first dragon Ceres ever slew, specifically from the base of its neck. Offering them was his way of repaying a long-standing debt. Humbled, the Count hesitated. He couldn't recall any favor significant enough to warrant such a valuable present. The orphan boy had never forgotten how the village embraced him. That kindness, Ceres believed, stemmed from Gameruda's fair rule. No amount of gold could match that. Count Gameruda got straight to the point. He inquired if Ceres had come only to talk. Ceres shook his head. He revealed his purpose. Someone had been sentenced to the mines for tax evasion, and that someone was Zector. Ceres made a surprising request. He offered to pay the unpaid taxes in full. In return, he inquired the Count to release Zector from punishment. With a thoughtful look, Ceres reflected on Zector's name. While their history was bitter, he was determined to act differently. The Count questioned his motives. Zector's reputation in the village was terrible, and no one would have bothered to save him. Ceres admitted to himself that part of his decision was strategic. Zector had a role to play in his future plans, even if the motivation wasn't purely selfless still. He couldn't ignore the past. Zector had once gazed after him during childhood. That kindness lingered in Ceres's memory, deserving some form of repayment. Gameruda finally agreed. The dragon scales would cover Zector's debt soon after. A servant arrived with the prisoner. Zector, worn from labor, remained at the threshold. Seeing Ceres again caught Zector off guard. His voice cracked as he stated the name, unsure whether this was rescue or another judgment to face. Zector lowered his head, tears welling up as he apologized. Ceres remained quiet for a moment, then simply told him they would return to the village. As they strolled through the fields, Ceres's tone changed. He confronted Zector about selling Shizuko, seeking an answer that had haunted him. With guilt on his face, Zector recalled an old promise made during childhood. Ceres remembered the moment clearly. In that dark place, fate had brought Shizuko back into his life. Zector silently processed it all. Ceres pressed him further. Regret wasn't enough. If he truly understood what he had done, an apology to her was the first step, one Ceres wasn't sure he wanted to witness. As they approached the village, Ceres reflected on what lay ahead. Zector's presence would affect the future, and explaining things to Shizuko properly was unavoidable. Nervously, Zector inquired to have Ceres by his side. Ceres, unamused, denied him immediately. He was scared too. Shizuko opened the door, smiling warmly, as she welcomed Ceres home. Her tone swiftly shifted when she noticed who remained beside him. Recognition struck instantly. Zector braced himself, unable to speak. Shizuko stared, stunned and silent for only a second before rage started to rise. In a furious eruption, Shizuko unleashed her long-suppressed wrath. The earth cracked beneath her feet as she roared his name, Zector. Shizuko's grin stretched wide, eyes glowing with intensity. Zector remained frozen, realizing his punishment was just beginning now. Dark energy crackled around her body as she remained tall, eyes glowing with restrained fury. Smiling with unsettling calm, she stared down her target. Confidence twisted her expression as she recalled the humiliation he once inflicted. The coward flinched under her glare, staggering backward. He recalled how he'd sold her off for coin and indulgence. Women from the household emerged, expressions hard, none displayed pity. Each word from them carved deeper into his shame. No one welcomed him. Another figure calmly observed, unmoved by the scene. His intentions were clear. Vengeance demanded tools, not mercy. Ceres gave his final instruction, calm and indifferent. As long as no one died, the rest was permitted. Surrounded by a group of determined women, he collapsed to his knees. Their eyes burned with purpose. Screams erupted from the house, echoing through the peaceful village. Ceres reclined nearby, unfazed by the chaos. As a child, his heart leaned toward the warmth of older women, mothers of his friends. Others would have buried such feelings, however he clung to them. Life strangely offered him that path after all. Now surrounded by those very women, Ceres found comfort. The affection he once believed unreachable had become real. Determination filled Ceres's eyes. Protecting those who remained beside him meant making hard decisions without regret. Zector collapsed, his body barely holding together. Shock registered across Ceres's face as he rushed toward him. The women remained calmly. One had already utilized magic to keep the man alive. No further harm followed. Despite everything, Ceres tried to believe they had shown restraint. Their mercy, he hoped, hadn't gone too far. Redemption wasn't denied. Zector now lived under the village chief's care, working and striving to rebuild his life. Ceres remained before the women, his expression serious. Each of them listened as he addressed the group. He revealed his plan to travel and act alone. Revenge would continue. However, this time on his own terms, no details followed. Trusting their bond, he simply inquired them to leave everything in his hands for now. The next day, Ceres arrived at a new location. Several men awaited him, surprised by his sudden offer. A deal was struck. Orkman, a towering intermediary, agreed to assist him with the arrangements. Concerns were voiced. However, Ceres remained firm. A group of men remained together, expressing gratitude. They had gathered to offer Ceres a gift of thanks. Zector hesitated as the gesture reached him. Memories of his past surfaced. Ceres reminded him of who he once was, and urged him to value the chance he'd been given. Orkman and Ceres unveiled their preparation. Inside the tent waited a group selected with care and purpose. One by one, the women stepped forward. Each introduced herself, bringing surprise and excitement to the recipients. Afterward, The village chief offered Ceres a title, smiling. He politely declined. Recognition wasn't what he sought. Confusion spread across her face. The scene before her was far from what she had expected. Others observed the cheerful mood in town. Former strangers now strolled together, laughing and clearly content. Ceres offered a quiet explanation. His decision to pair the elf with the village chief was intentional, meant to unsettle Zekt. She listened carefully. Restrictions placed on heroes meant Zekt could never claim slaves or form ties with non-humans. Despite everything, Zekt appeared elated beside a cat-eared girl. His happiness unsettled those watching from afar. Ceres explained Zektor's new situation. His bride came from a beastman tribe known for extreme jealousy. If caught glancing at another woman, punishment followed instantly. Zektor faced immediate consequences from his possessive wife. At worst, she might go as far as biting off his fingers. Fear visibly took hold of him. She knew her flaws, however, embraced them. Constant affection wasn't a desire. It was a demand she enforced without compromise. For what Zektor did in the past. This was fitting. A lifetime bound to loyalty was his sentence, although it experienced awkward. Ceres admitted the elf girl was more beautiful than his childhood friends. Zektor's situation drew attention. The irony stung. His father had a youthful, stunning bride, nearly the same age, smiling wide. Zektor remained unaware of the looming troubles. Those watching offered quiet sarcasm and good luck. Elsewhere, another concern surfaced. Questions arose about Kazuma's slave, suggesting there might be an issue worth noticing. The girl had served nobility as a cooking maid. While impressive, her skills might not suit Kazuma's true needs. She pointed out Kazuma's real need a partner like a reliable sister, one who could manage his life. The maid, sitting silently, admitted her limitations. Aside from cooking, she experienced unqualified for much else. Still, hope remained. Together, Kazuma and the maid might overcome their mismatched pairing and reach something meaningful. Another conversation shifted attention. Curiosity turned toward a different girl, raising questions about her suitability and role. That girl made her stance clear. A hardened mercenary, she sought strength, not manners, and wouldn't soften easily. Ceres noted how Kaito mistreated gentle Sayo in the past. Now, he'd face a partner he couldn't control. The new bride didn't hold back. Each punch landed with meaning, communication in its most direct form. Observers hoped it would curb his aggression. Meanwhile, another woman inquired Ceres about her ex-husband's fate. Shuto's new bride, a noble's daughter, wasn't just beautiful, she was dominant. Brains and strength both belonged to her. Misaki reflected on their dynamic. Shuto's twisted nature clashed with her honesty. However, somehow, they had to make it work. With a calm smile, the noble girl listed her skills: drugs, whips, manipulation, however assured she wouldn't resort to murder. Her partner listened uneasily. Ceres clarified the intent. These women weren't just companions, they were the cure to each man's flaws. As the group gazed closer, they noticed something unsettling. The girls resembled people they all knew too well, standing together. The new brides shared striking features. Their looks weren't coincidental, they mirrored others with eerie precision. For the daughters, the situation was disturbing. Their fathers now strolled with younger women who gazed just like them. Daughters came back home only to be disturbed by scenes they couldn't unsee. The atmosphere had shifted entirely. With their family bonds severed, nothing carried them there. Plans were made to leave the village behind for good. A new start awaited them in the capital. Their focus shifted to finding a space to share together. Support came from all sides. Ceres promised to handle the financial burden. However, the women offered assist in return. Their unity deepened in private. What started as shared survival evolved into mutual trust, affection, and connection. The group discussed how to handle their nightly arrangements. While playful, their suggestions hinted at serious competition afterward. All five shared the bed. Affection filled the space, while not without flustered protests and awkward laughter. With farewells exchanged, Ceres and the women departed the village. Friends and former rivals wished them well. As the carriage moved forward, Ceres reflected silently. He knew that if Zekt rose in status, he wouldn't remain in the village for long. Ceres experienced sure of one thing: if they ever came back, it wouldn't be by choice, however, by necessity. The wagon rolled into the distance. If Zekt failed his quest, peace would never follow. Back in the capital, disorder consumed them, surrounded by regret and ruin. Their dreams slowly fell apart. After Ceres left, the party fell into disarray. Coordination broke down, and battles that were once easy turned into near defeats. Alone and believed, one of the former companions faced the harsh reality, with guilt weighing heavily on his shoulders. He acknowledged that only one option remained to fix their broken unity. The women, already understanding the situation, voiced the unspoken. They predicted what needed to be done, offering one of them to bring Ceres back. Confirmation followed. Among those present, only 2 had a direct connection to Ceres. Despite hesitation, the man confessed. If it would restore what was lost, he would offer all 3 without regret. Understanding slowly dawned on the women, regret displayed in their eyes as they finally acknowledged their mistakes. Arrogance still lingered in Zek's mind. He viewed his former allies as lesser, dismissing their worth without hesitation. Ambitions fueled his thoughts. Zek dreamed of victory, fame, and royal brides once the Demon King was defeated. Meanwhile, the women remained united. They chose to give themselves to Ceres, hoping their gesture would be enough to bring him back. Past pride gave way to humility. Lyda reflected on her long resentment. Childhood jealousy had shaped her cruelty, yet Ceres had never responded in anger. Mel gazed back with regret. Enchanted by her status as a hero's concubine, she had forgotten the one who truly mattered. Memories of Ceres' kindness came flooding back. When she feared rejection, he had offered comfort without hesitation. This frustration welled up in Lyda. At first, Zek hadn't meant anything to her. However, after giving in to his pursuit, she had grown attached to thinking of Ceres brought her peace. His maturity and calm presence made her feel understood. Compared to life as Zek's wife she experienced, she'd be far happier by Ceres' side. With shifting hearts behind him, Zek decided to act. He requested permission to contact the man they all once cast aside, Ceres. Zek's request to reach Ceres was rejected without hesitation. The royal decree emphasized that a hero must always press forward, never pause, never retreat, faced with opposition. Zek protested. However, he was met with harsh reality. The castle now sheltered refugees. 2 children sobbed in the ruins of their village, victims of a delayed response. Had Zek left the city earlier, the orc attack might have been prevented. The gravity of their mistake sank in. Zek remained speechless, and the others stared in silent horror. Frustration boiled over as Zek blamed himself. Nothing had gone as planned. With urgency replacing pride, he vowed to leave immediately. Time was no longer on their side. The newly assigned room glowed with elegance. Each woman took in the luxurious surroundings, impressed by the change from their previous hardships. Preparations for the night started. With light-hearted energy, they moved the beds closer, jokingly calling it their shared love nest. While fatigue from travel lingered, the group remained spirited. Plans to bathe and rest were discussed. However, the atmosphere suggested they weren't quite ready to sleep yet. Ceres remained flustered. As Shizuko expressed her quiet determination to be with him, his heart skipped. Before the moment could deepen, the others interrupted. Annoyed by his drifting thoughts, they pulled him back with playful boos. Dim lamplight frames a confident woman guiding another closer. Expressions flushed with anticipation. Bodies drawn together, contact deepens as positions change, breaths uneven, focus narrowing, weight shifts and hand steady movements. Attention passes to another participant, waiting gives way to resolve. Composure mixes with eagerness as closeness is accepted. Momentum resumes with renewed intensity, roles aligning naturally. Control alternates, reactions sharpen, and the room holds heat as effort peaks. Afterward, awareness lingers in quiet observation. Satisfaction and fatigue settle together. Tension easing into calm as the scene closes on shared understanding with steady breathing and composed expressions remaining present. Rhythmic movement continued between them. Bodies aligned and coordination unbroken. Her gaze stayed locked on him, calm however assertive. Fatigue started to surface. Surrounded on all sides, he struggled to maintain his pace. Expressions grew softer as concern replaced anticipation. Time passed. Days later, the group took quiet refuge in a resting place, covered in light clothes. They remained still, reflecting in silence. Recovery brought new thoughts. One voiced desire for shared adventures, while another accepted the bond he had forged. Understanding deepened. They acknowledged the effort he put in for their sake. A dragon hunt awaited. He strolled ahead in silence, unaware of the quiet conversation behind him. Those watching him understood his drive wasn't rooted in pride, however in a desire to protect. Afterward, the women gathered again, resting in the warmth of the stones. While grateful, a sense of helplessness stirred. Frustration reached a peak together. They confronted him with determination, unwilling to remain passive any longer. To their surprise, he welcomed the offer without resistance. From a high place, they surveyed the land. Dragons had been dealt with in secret, silently clearing danger from the capital's shadow, without ever asking for thanks. Towering and armored in stone, the boulder dragon loomed ahead. Without hesitation, he advanced to face it. Cold wind howled as the water and ice dragon encircled him. Snow and scale clashed under pressure. Lightning cracked the sky. Mid-air, he met the Storm King dragon, striking through chaos with precision. Dozens more had fallen dragons and wyverns alike, estimates blurred. Riding above it all, he guessed the count elsewhere. The women stared in disbelief. With that many victories and wealth, they questioned its true purpose. He revealed a thoughtful surprise custom hunting gear made specifically for them. Everything had already been prepared in advance. Excitement grew as each woman received her equipment. Crafted with care, the designs suited them perfectly. With weapons in hand, confidence came back. For some, it experienced like stepping back into a role long missed. He proposed an easier target to begin with, considering their time away. They agreed without hesitation, eager to move. Once they arrived, something experienced off. Shizuko, expected to take a support role, remained oddly calm as enemies approached. Without hesitation, Shizuko raised her staff and unleashed a radiant spell that pulsed outward in force. The wave struck directly. Several ogres collapsed before they could reach her, overwhelmed by the sudden impact. His eyes widened. Never before had he seen magic shaped like that. It wasn't ordinary healing. Instead of restoring life, the spell reversed its nature. Her technique siphoned vitality from the targets. Calm and composed, she confirmed the truth. What others utilized to save, she mastered to dismantle. While climbing the mountain path, she voiced a quiet fear. The idea of withering away unsettled her deeply, surrounded by frozen enemies. She remained calmly, her question hung in the air. Seeking Ceres' silent agreement, he gave it some believed. Facing death by freezing, in his view, experienced equally horrifying. On the battlefield, two others charged in. Their strikes were merciless and overwhelming, cutting down the enemy lines effortlessly. What remained were stunned opponents, now trembling. Ceres offered a blunt observation acknowledging the psychological toll left behind. Ogres charged in, only to find themselves outmatched. The women responded swiftly, blades steady and steps sure. When the dust settled, the ground was silent. None of them even gazed tired. To Ceres, it barely experienced like a proper battle. Their calm expressions carried no pride. He acknowledged their skill honestly. Each one was stronger than someone he once knew well. Despite the compliment, they explained their limits. While dragons proved too much in the past, ogres were manageable. Ceres questioned the past. If their abilities were so refined, why had they stepped away from it all? Her quiet smile carried the answer, one he would understand in time. As the sun dipped behind the cliffs, the four women sat silently. Years ago, they fought to protect others. However, that path led them to unexpected conflict. Choosing to walk away, they sought normalcy. Traveling as a group presented its own challenges, especially without support or acceptance. Ceres understood now. The world they moved through had never been fair. Dangers surrounded them not only from monsters, however, from how society viewed their strength. His warning wasn't without reason. Slaying hundreds might draw stronger enemies. One woman raised an eyebrow, confused by the mention of a king. Realization came too late. The strongest opponent had already fallen without fanfare, taken down in a single move. None of them had even noticed at the time. Shizuko offered a playful gesture, unaware that her light-hearted expression only deepened Ceres' realization. Their strength wasn't just impressive, it was overwhelming. He followed behind them silently. Despite their relaxed walk, unease stirred within him. Their power was unmatched, and even he experienced it best not to provoke them. Elsewhere, a dark pit seethed with unease. One voice echoed from within, warning of a growing crisis. Their numbers were falling, picked off steadily, without mercy. A trembling creature delivered a report. It wasn't an army. Not even the hero's party. Every disaster traced back to a single figure. From a throne, an older man processed the news that one person had slain even legendary dragons. He spoke only one name, Black Dragon, and deemed this hunter too dangerous to leave alone. A silent order was given. The man at the center became the subject of interest, watched, tracked, and evaluated from the shadows. Elsewhere, the directive turned lethal. One figure, with a twisted grin, decided that observation wouldn't be enough. Descending the stone steps, the demon appeared visibly irritated. He had received orders he deemed beneath him. Despite centuries of power and destruction, he was sent to confront a mortal perched above the ruined city. He surveyed the corpses below. Memories of past slaughter came back. He had wiped out entire kingdoms long ago. Hovering midair, wings outstretched, he grumbled at the task. Crushing weaklings offered no thrill, yet defiance wasn't an option. From a distance, another presence observed. The old ruler of Hades, feared even by dragons, remained unmatched in power. With resignation, the demon flew toward his destination. Finishing the mission swiftly was the only escape from punishment and boredom. Suspicion grew in his chest as the unease of being watched persisted. While he tried to ignore it, the feeling clung to him for days. Even surrounded by strong allies like Shizuko, he couldn't shake the dread. A terrifying presence loomed, hidden from everyone else. He decided to distance himself. Standing near the others only heightened his worry. Avoiding unnecessary risk, he made up an excuse and planned to confront the threat alone. The women accepted his words without suspicion. Smiles and casual farewells met his false explanation. Alone in the forest, he stopped and scanned the area. Without hesitation, he called out, ready to face the silent stalker trailing him. The boy confronted the figure trailing him, unfazed by the hostile intent. Keen perception allowed him to detect danger easily, and he faced the intruder with calm certainty. Mocked for his assumptions, the boy learned the truth. His opponent wasn't a demon or a king, however a dragon. Irritation flared in the dragon's eyes. He despised being compared to mere demons. Pride surged as he emphasized the difference in their rank and power. To dragons of his level, even the demon king carried little weight. Ceres knelt, introducing himself with humility. Despite the massive power gap, the dragon acknowledged his feats, recognizing him as a warrior worthy of respect. Ceres issued a formal challenge, his voice steady. The dragon accepted, offering his respect in return. Dragons valued power, and Ceres had proven his strength against their kind. While blood had been spilled, the duel became a way to settle matters with dignity. Feigning humility, Ceres tried to withdraw. He referred to himself as unworthy, hoping to defuse the situation without combat. Instead of walking away, the dragon pointed to a crater-topped mountain nearby. That would be their battleground, chosen with purpose. Terms were set: victory wouldn't require defeat in combat alone. If Ceres could escape to the forest, he'd win. A smirk crossed the dragon's face as his scales started to surface. While he had promised not to dragonify during the duel, his transformation triggered before battle even started. Fully transformed, the black dragon launched into the sky, his immense wings tearing through the air. Ceres lay helpless, overwhelmed by the sheer difference in strength. Panic crept in as he understood the battlefield was kilometers from the forest. Elsewhere, Shizuko sensed something was wrong. Concern filled her expression as she wondered whether Ceres had faced danger alone. Unease spread among the women. Despite Ceres' attempt to reassure them, they all sensed something deeper. Signs of Ceres' movement pointed toward the forest. The others, growing anxious, followed his trail without delay. Worry turned into alarm as they called his name, shouting through the darkness. None of them wanted to be left behind while danger loomed nearby. Their approach was swiftly halted. A figure floated above the trees, warning them not to interfere. Before they could react, the stranger revealed his identity: Bauer, the Hades dragon, ruler of the underworld itself. His presence demanded silence. Suspicion flared. They demanded answers, accusing him of targeting Ceres. Amused, Bauer dismissed the tension with a remark. Observing how loud and determined they were, a massive dragon descended from the sky, its overwhelming presence shaking the ground. The dragon's voice boomed, declaring its intentions clearly. Their conflict, it claimed, was with Ceres alone, not with them. Unintimidated, the women responded sharply. They made it clear that they had no patience for senseless violence and demanded the dragon retreat. Shizuko's eyes narrowed, her worry deepening. Her thoughts drifted to Ceres, who was somewhere facing this nightmare on his own. Meanwhile, the black dragon's human form hunted Ceres with violent intent. Fiery breath erupted, forcing the young warrior to evade behind crumbling rocks. Hovering above the battlefield, the dragon, winged man, roared with fury. Ceres dashed behind the rocky terrain, trying to maintain distance. Shocked, he pointed out the obvious: his opponent had broken the rules by using dragon wings. A moment of awkwardness passed. The dragon acknowledged the truth with a shrug. No denial, no apology, just a quiet concession. Breath grew heavier as Ceres ran. Desperation took hold. The forest experienced farther with every step. Before long, the pursuer appeared right in front of him. There was no more room to run. Ceres clenched his jaw, reaching for a hidden option he had hoped not to use so soon. Ceres steadied his breath and activated a hidden technique, one designed specifically for overwhelming threats. With precise timing, Ceres launched a small pouch directly at the dragon warrior's face. Pain surged instantly. The attacker's widened eyes betrayed his shock and agony as he screamed uncontrollably. Ceres revealed the trick. Instead of poison, he had utilized powdered chili and wasabi, ingredients immune to magical neutralization. Seizing the opening, Ceres activated airwalk and sprang into motion. Magic couldn't block physical pain, and now, with his opponent temporarily blinded, he prepared to launch the next strike in this high-stakes duel. Ceres sprinted through the air using his technique. The forest entrance came into view. Victory was close. A sudden strike tore through his back. The dragon warrior, faster than expected, lashed out with rage and claws. Bloodied, however unbroken, Ceres cried out in defiance. Anger surged. He refused to fall without making his voice heard. His body crashed through the foliage, Pain radiated through his chest. He understood he had reached the forest barely, breathing heavily. The dragon warrior remained still. Regret flickered in his words. He hadn't meant to finish the battle like this, however. In the end, he broke the rules. The dragon warrior remained beside Ceres' fallen form. With a grim voice, he declared the duel's outcome. Ceres had won. To honor that outcome, he drove his own claw into his side. Blood spilled freely, proof of Ceres' triumph over a dragon lord. As further tribute, he offered his liver and blood sacred gifts among dragonkind. With those words, he turned and strolled away. The burden of survival, victory, or failure now rested entirely on Ceres' shoulders. Far away, the others sensed something was wrong. Without hesitation, they drew their weapons. Their comrade was in danger, and they refused to stay idle any longer. The battle resumed with explosive force. One of the women unleashed a wind-based technique gale drill, cutting the air with deadly precision. Another followed up instantly, slamming down with Fireclaw. Flames erupted, roaring toward the towering enemy. However, the attack barely dented its hide. Their efforts met an unshaken opponent. The Hades dragon loomed, unaffected. The women's expressions fell as the reality sank in. He was on another level. Doubt took root. They understood they remained no chance against something divine. Still, doing nothing wasn't an option. One stepped forward, voice steady despite the pressure. With blades lowered, they made a plea to the dragon, requesting mercy. Tears welled in her eyes as she made a desperate plea. Her voice cracked. She begged the dragon not to kill Ceres. The Hades dragon paused. Unmoving silence followed her words, and the group carried their breath. Tension crackled in the air, without responding directly. The dragon turned and issued a command. He told them to go to the mountain. An unexpected shift, without hesitation. The group sprang into motion. Their feet hit the ground in unison, running toward where Ceres had fallen. Time was running out. They reached his side and cried out his name, panic on their faces. Ceres lay motionless, bloodied and still. Panic filled their voices as they leaned over Ceres, desperately calling out to him. He wasn't responding, however they refused to give up. Slowly, his eyes opened. Blurred faces surrounded him, filled with concern and relief. He mumbled weakly, unsure if he was truly alive. Blood covered his clothes, yet no visible wounds remained. One by one, the women understood he had somehow survived. Tears welled up. He was safe. Ceres sat up, dazed and confused. He had been certain the dragon's claws struck deep. However, now he questioned whether the fatal blow had ever landed. He recalled the dream his mother, long gone, and a man who resembled his father. It was peaceful, distant, and maybe, just maybe, the reason he'd came back. Ceres grinned awkwardly as he recounted the tale. Telling people he had married 4 mothers had left quite a few in shock. He remembered what happened after death, sent to the underworld without understanding why. He remained before dragon royalty. Returning to the living world, he found comfort in the presence of those he cherished. He was back, safe, and experienced, certain no one would be hunting him anymore. Surrounded by smiling faces, he finally breathed easily. Every hardship had led to this quiet moment. His body was battered, clothes torn, and skin covered in dirt. Yet, despite everything, he could still stand. At the hot spring entrance, the party pauses, unease settling as the hero departs, leaving watchful gazes. Paths diverge outside, foliage swallowing footsteps while suspicion grows. Signs hint at trouble as distance widens. Steam encloses the baths where he examines himself, heat lingering unnaturally, skin flushed without wounds, strength humming silently. Movement through open pools reveals bodies at rest and training spirits. Warmth sharpening awareness instead of sickness. Energy pooling closer to resolve as night air frames contemplation and purpose forming. Closed focus tightens on his eyes, concern crystallizing as he recognizes the greater issue. An unseen cause demanding caution. Preparation, sitting in the cold water. He senses something is off. A strange warmth lingers below the surface. A nearby bather glances over, visibly surprised. The reaction deepens his discomfort and growing confusion. Other men begin to notice as well. The atmosphere shifts, awkward silence filling the steaming room. Looking down, his thoughts spiral. Uncertainty and alarm grip him as his body responds abnormally. A sudden realization strikes, something unnatural has taken hold, triggering a deeper transformation than expected. After the intense clash with the Black Dragon, Ceres noticed unsettling changes within himself. His discomfort focused on his lower body, unrelenting and persistent. Trying to ignore it, he decided to return before concerns started to spread. Upon arriving, he was greeted warmly by the women of his party. Their calm presence and gentle smiles provided a moment of ease amidst his internal unease. One of them, more perceptive than the others, immediately inquired about his condition. She explained that while tracking him, a massive dragon had appeared and pointed them in his direction. Ceres reassured the group that the danger had passed, while concern lingered in one of their gazes. Despite trying to act normal, his unease worsened. A strange tension gripped his body, leaving him visibly flustered. Afterward that evening, the women gathered with serious expressions, seemingly understanding the root of his condition. Alone in the room, Ceres struggled to contain himself. The lingering effects of the earlier battle had stirred something intense within, making restraint difficult. The women responded with unexpected tenderness. Surrounding him closely, they offered quiet reassurance and prepared to assist ease the pressure he could no longer suppress. The group acknowledged Ceres' burden and offered their care. Surrounded by warmth, he allowed himself to rest, trusting their intentions. Tension steadily built as closeness intensified. The emotional strain from earlier battles gave way to a vulnerable moment shared with one companion. Another stepped in, responding to Ceres' continued struggle. The atmosphere became heavier, as each person pushed themselves beyond comfort to support him. Fatigue grew, however the pace didn't slow. Each gesture carried more urgency, matched by the rising pressure between them. Even the most composed among them displayed signs of strain. Despite exhaustion, they all stayed close, bound by trust and a shared desire to assist. The room remained dim as the hours passed. Ceres moved between them carefully, responding to each with quiet intensity. Despite how much time had passed, the restlessness within him refused to fade. Each effort only deepened the mystery of his lingering condition. Eventually, exhaustion set in. Some had reached their limits, unable to keep up with the demands of the night. Breathing slowed, bodies stilled, and the silence came back. Fatigue overtook the last of them. While satisfied, they could hardly move, worn down by the relentless pace. All strength had been spent. As Ceres sat silently at the edge of the bed, the strange energy inside him finally subsided. While everyone else remained asleep from exhaustion, Ceres remained among them, oddly alert. Despite the intense night, his body displayed no signs of fatigue or wear. With no need for rest, his thoughts turned to hunger. The quiet streets welcomed him as he set off in search of food. Soon, he arrived at a local tavern. Without hesitation, he ordered several large portions, much to the cook's surprise. Even after finishing multiple servings, he didn't feel satisfied. The staff grew uneasy as he continued ordering more, drawing attention from the other patrons. Eventually, the kitchen could no longer keep up. Surrounded by empty plates, Ceres was politely inquired to stop. The staff, visibly drained, pleaded for mercy. With his hunger finally sated, Ceres turned his focus toward training. His body experienced lighter, leaner, and strangely energized. No matter how intensely he swung his blades, fatigue never came. His strikes grew sharper, even shattering stone with ease. Something within him had changed. His training was interrupted by a massive creature emerging from the rocky cliffs. A hulking form loomed unmistakably a dragon. While unlike any he'd faced before, despite the threat, he carried his ground. Recalling the black dragon, Ceres tensed, wary of what this new one might bring. Then, without warning, a voice echoed in his mind. The dragon didn't roar, it spoke, addressing him as a protector. A king, Ceres attempted to respond to the dragon with his thoughts. While uncertain, he decided to try communicating in the same silent way. The dragon, however, saw something different. In its eyes, Ceres wasn't human, however, the embodiment of a powerful black dragon. Accepting what it perceived, the dragon addressed him with reverence, calling him a dragon lord. Left alone, Ceres reflected on his past. His death during the battle with the black dragon must have triggered something. Just as he tried to understand, another creature arrived, a wyvern. With no time to think further, he faced a new challenge, unsure what would come next. The wyvern approached without hostility, pressing close as if seeking attention. Ceres hesitated, then slowly reached out to touch it, feeling no resistance. As he remained beside the resting beast, a realization took root. Some unknown force, perhaps tied to his survival, now prevented him from harming dragons. He reflected on what he had gained: a body enhanced beyond normal limits, and the ability to communicate with dragons. Regardless of origin, his new abilities would serve a purpose. If nothing else, he could protect those closest to him, his companions, his family, his wives. Elsewhere, rumors spread. A surge of dragons was reportedly approaching. Concern filled the air, and preparation started. One of the knights voiced his concern. Never before had he heard of dragons gathering in such numbers. The priest responded with uncertainty. No one knew the cause, however. The dragons appeared to be fleeing something driven by fear, not aggression. Unfortunately, their path pointed directly toward the city of Bushia. Without intervention, the population would face catastrophic danger. Despite the gravity of the request, the assembled party hesitated. As they were now facing a horde of dragons seemed almost impossible. Still, the priest reminded them of their roles. If they couldn't act alone, they had resources. The guild, the church, or the city's lord, the party's leader, compared their indecision to Ceres' known decisiveness. Striking a nerve, his frustration toward their hesitation was clear. In response, the Lord of Bushia offered full support. He recognized the crisis and promised knights and soldiers to aid the defense. However, planning proved difficult. The Lord inquired for deployment details. However, no clear strategy or leadership came from the hero's side. Zekt confessed he had no answers. The city's forces would have to be managed without guidance. Some questioned the hero's lack of command experience. As doubts lingered, the sky filled with dragons. The threat had become real, massive, and fast approaching. Time was running out. One of the women urged caution. Facing the dragons without the full army was reckless. However, Zekt refused to back down. Driven by pride, he insisted on holding the front line. To him, retreat was unacceptable. In comparison, he admitted his shortcomings. Others surpassed him in swordplay, magic, and healing. However, none could match his will to lead. To Zekt, bravery defined a hero. Fearlessness in the face of overwhelming odds was all that mattered. With determination, he charged into the fray. His strike connected, landing a devastating blow on a dragon. The battle had begun, and there was no turning back now. Zekt's attack landed with force, shattering the dragon's defense. Confidence surged as he prepared for the next move. The moment didn't last. Surrounded by multiple dragons, his rallying cry fell short as panic started to rise. Meanwhile, the others struggled to keep up. One cast a barrier, barely protecting the group as fear took hold. Watching them falter, Zekt understood bravery wasn't shared while he remained firm. The same could not be stated of everyone else. Surrounded by dragons, 3 women remained within a glowing barrier. None appeared afraid despite the looming threat. Outside the dome, adventurers panicked as dragons approached. Their formation broke down as fear gripped their hearts. Zekt, the supposed hero, watched the retreating backs of his allies. No one stayed beside him. Rushing forward alone, Zekt swung his sword at the dragon. Blood sprayed, however the assault failed to stop it. Without hesitation, he pierced the beast's neck. Cold resolve lit his eyes as the creature collapsed. Zekt wandered alone through the forest, his legs heavy and breath unsteady. The battle had drained everything he had, and with no strength left to stand, he collapsed onto the grass. His vision slowly came back, and the sound of wind through leaves reached his ears. Lying still, he stared upward with blank eyes, unsure how long he had been unconscious. Standing weakly, he touched his injured arm. The limb refused to move, pain radiating from the joint. From afar, the barrier remained active. Inside it, the 3 women sat safely, untouched by the chaos. Zekt's gaze shifted to the bodies lying ahead, their silence telling enough. Swallowing back nausea, he steadied himself and muttered his next goal. Destruction filled the city's streets. Buildings remained shattered, and armored bodies lay scattered among rubble and blood. Zekt arrived to find the city in ruins. A survivor reported grim news: the city's lord was dead. Before he could react, a stone struck him from the crowd, sharp pain flashing across his face. Anger flared among the people. A boy accused Zekt directly, blaming him for his mother's fate. Others tried to intervene, urging calm. However, the resentment had already taken hold. Surrounded by wary civilians, Zekt defended his actions. He explained the dragons had been enemies they couldn't negotiate with. However, one man stepped forward with new information. The dragons hadn't attacked. First, they were fleeing something. The man stepped forward, voice steady as he spoke hard truths. He explained that while the city's destruction couldn't be avoided, the loss of life might have been prevented. Zekt's voice trembled as he tried to defend his decisions. He brought up the church's orders, hoping they would validate his actions. Tension flared as emotions boiled over. Grabbing Zekt by the collar, the man shouted in anger and frustration. Suddenly, Zekt remembered the words clearly. The priest had never instructed him to engage in combat, only to stop or divert the dragons. Tears streamed down his face. Regret overwhelmed him. His mistake had cost lives, and nothing could undo it. Tears continued to fall as the man spoke harshly. According to him, the church had never expected Zekt to win, and those who placed faith in him were foolish. Surrounded by silence, Zekt knelt in the middle of the street. The people who once called him savior now ordered him to leave. Not far from the ruined city, the women remained protected behind their barrier. Their surroundings were littered with unconscious soldiers. Resolute, he approached the shimmering wall. His voice low, he inquired for the barrier to be released. Shouting erupted as his patience snapped. Pounding the barrier, he demanded they open it. Emotions finally burst free. Inside a quiet room, the 3 women waited in silence. Zekt entered without a word, his expression heavy. The orb lit up, revealing the image of Pope Romaris. The atmosphere turned tense as the Pope's eyes met Zek's. With hesitation, Zek addressed the man on the screen. Speaking the Pope's name aloud, he displayed no hostility. Emotion welled up in his voice. He attempted to offer an apology, however stopped himself. Instead, he expressed understanding, stating that he carried no hatred toward anyone for what had happened. Pope Romaris, unmoved by the self-blame, gave his reply. In his view, the deaths were inevitable. With a calm expression, Pope Romaris spoke directly. He explained that he had once made a promise with Lord Ceres. Surprised, Zek reacted with confusion. The Pope acknowledged the disbelief and clarified that Ceres had never shared this information. In another place and time, Ceres faced harsh judgment. A past failure had cost lives, and voices around him demanded accountability. Seated with his companions, Ceres gave his final remarks. He defended their efforts, stating that one of them had to act. A man remained and accused Ceres directly, his finger-pointed voice rising in anger. He condemned Ceres' inability to even offer an apology for the deaths that resulted from their mission. Ceres lashed out, demanding to know who had spread the idea of fighting the Demon King. The man who had argued with him tried to justify their position, blaming the system and its dangers. Unshaken, Ceres claimed he could end the war in a month. He offered a bold strategy and requested full authority. A plan titled All-Out War was proposed. Civilians and soldiers alike would abandon their daily lives to march directly to the Demon King's castle. The entire nation was to be mobilized. Ceres' strategy left no room for dissent. Those who refused to join or attempted to flee would face exile or death. Ceres proposed a plan that would involve all of humanity, insisting it was the only guaranteed way to win. Turning to Zek's situation, Ceres accused the leadership of sacrificing the hero's party. He argued that people preferred to remain uninvolved, letting others risk their lives instead. While the Pope protested, Ceres pressed on, replacing the few with the many he claimed would end the war swiftly. The Pope hesitated. A single word escaped him: please. His voice carried a tremble, the conviction in Ceres' reasoning beginning to shake his own. Admitting their fault, the Pope retracted his earlier promise. He couldn't accept the responsibility. Ceres delivered his final words without hesitation. If the world insisted on forcing responsibility onto them, then it had no right to complain about the consequences. Walking off, he left behind the authority figures still clinging to their comfort. He condemned their hypocrisy, living peaceful lives while demanding sacrifices from others. Back in the room, Zek sat silently, absorbing the Pope's confession. Ceres' conviction had overwhelmed every argument. Memories flickered in Zek's mind, Ceres walking away. The women who had stayed by his side, realization struck hard, regret filled his heart. He had cast out the one person who truly understood the weight he carried. Zek dropped to his knees, overwhelmed by regret. He finally understood that Ceres, the one he pushed away, had been the only person who truly understood them. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a new kind of atmosphere unfolded. One of the women, caught in a moment of closeness with Ceres. As the discussion continued, the others gathered in a relaxed setting, amused yet candid. One of the women made a bold prediction. She referenced Ceres' passionate nature, implying that such a trip could stir more than just warm water. Another woman saw the opportunity clearly. For her, it wasn't just leisure. It was a chance to grow even closer. The women sat together, openly sharing their frustrations, repeatedly losing their private battles with Ceres had worn on their pride. One of them, driven by determination, resolved to not lose again. Her expression mixed focus with challenge. United by the same goal, all four remained together in silent agreement. They promised to satisfy him completely, not just for his sake. Afterward, while traveling in a carriage, two of the women discussed their destination. Kohain, known for its unusual origins, seemed like the perfect setting for rest and recovery after intense days. The talk turned lighthearted as they learned more about the local culture. Ceres shared that black eggs were a regional specialty. In the heart of the village, lively music echoed through the streets as two women played instruments, drawing smiles from the crowd. At the entrance to the resort town, the group arrived and took in the vibrant scenery. Standing together, the women admired the view, ready to enjoy Kohain's culture, comfort. Ceres and his new companions strolled through the vibrant marketplace, surrounded by colorful lanterns and curious sights. Intrigued by the local fashion, they stopped to observe women in floral-patterned outfits. While the style seemed unusual, the group remained open-minded, curious about the culture they had stepped into. Upon reaching the grand entrance of Kohain Pavilion, they were greeted by two cheerful hostesses, led up the stairs. The group admired the detailed architecture. One of them wondered if this structure had roots in Japan's ancient influence, marveling at its distinct and nostalgic design. As they ascended, an awkward moment arose, when the guide's yukata revealed a little too much. After an awkward pause, one of the women tried to explain the confusion. With a straight face, she pointed out that wearing undergarments under a kimono was apparently not traditional. Inside the guest room, the group tried to brush off the moment. One of them noticed Ceres blushing, prompting a teasing question. Their attention shifted to the room itself. Wide-eyed, one of them recognized the flooring style. Gathered on the floor, the party continued examining the details. The matte texture, wooden frame, and layout mirrored classic Japanese style. When offered the bath, Ceres declined politely. Rather than relax immediately, he chose to explore the town first, curiosity outweighing comfort, before heading out. The hostess kindly suggested they wear kimonos during their sightseeing for a more immersive experience. Surprised by the proposal, the women exchanged glances, unsure of how to respond to the unexpected request. Stepping into the lively streets, Ceres observed the architecture and atmosphere. The presence of a giant black egg caught his attention, hinting at local customs. As he strolled ahead, someone called his name from behind. He turned to see one of the women hesitating to speak, clearly uncomfortable. Dressed in kimonos, the group experienced self-conscious. They questioned their appearance and age for such attire, however accepted it for the moment. As they strolled through town, two women whispered their discomfort. Wearing kimonos without underwear proved more embarrassing than expected. Ceres, barely able to contain himself, gave an enthusiastic thumbs up. His nosebleed betrayed his thoughts, despite his compliment. While still blushing, the women gave in to the mood. Ceres casually suggested honeymoon plans, surprising them with his boldness. Each woman shared her own idea for the outing. From food to handcrafted souvenirs, their interests diverged swiftly. Left alone in the street, Ceres sighed. Despite the romantic setting, he couldn't assist, however, feel slightly abandoned. Wandering the streets, Ceres noticed one of the women admiring a small, ornate box. Drawn by its patterns, she became momentarily captivated. Seeing her fascination, Ceres offered the box to her without hesitation. She inquired if he was certain, and his simple nod confirmed it. They later sat together in a quiet spot overlooking the rooftops. Bit of silence lingered before she started speaking again. With a hesitant voice, she inquired if he had ever given Mel a present. Ceres responded with a soft smile, recalling a necklace. He explained. It had been a gesture to comfort Mel, who once cried after being rejected by Zect. Curious, she pressed Ceres for more details about the gift. Her tone suggested she already suspected the truth. Eventually, Ceres admitted the words he stated while giving it. She grinned knowingly, amused by his honesty. With a teasing look, she leaned closer and questioned whether he had crossed any lines. Her tone grew playful, her meaning clear. Startled, Ceres swiftly denied everything. Despite her insinuations, he insisted nothing inappropriate had happened. While flustered, he tried to reassure her that he'd never act improperly toward her daughter. With a warm smile, she inquired if Ceres truly experienced comfortable being with her, his former companion's mother. Without hesitation, he responded sincerely, calling her the best. The words brought a soft touch to her face. Moved by his honesty, she leaned in and kissed him gently. In the quiet corner of the town, the moment passed without interruption. Afterward, they shared a calm walk together. Before parting ways, he assured her they'd meet again at the inn. Continuing his walk, Ceres found himself near the lake. There, another familiar face greeted him, someone who had been waiting, surrounded by serene nature and a distant tarry gate. She remained peacefully, lost in quiet, believed. Ceres approached and inquired what was on her mind. She grinned, saying the scenery seemed to suit her. Looking over the lake, she admitted she experienced calm here as well. His words brought a soft laugh and appreciation. A small object on the ground caught her attention. Ceres wondered aloud if perhaps his ancestors once visited this place too. She picked up an acorn and recalled a fond memory. Holding it close, she grinned and reminded him of the acorn necklace he had given her long ago. Shizuko grinned fondly, admitting she still treasured the old gift Ceres once gave her. Suddenly her mood shifted. As dark thoughts swirled, she confessed growing resentment toward Sector, maybe even murderous intent. Meanwhile, Ceres was startled by her intensity. She calmly explained that during her time as a slave, everything from her home had been discarded. That included every gift from Ceres. Despite the sadness behind her words, her expression remained oddly serene. Sensing the tension, Ceres swiftly offered to give her another present. Just then, another voice called out, breaking the mood and redirecting their attention elsewhere. Out on the water, the swan boat glided gently across the lake. Shizuko sat calmly, enjoying the peaceful ride. Ceres pedaled with a smile, relieved to see her in better spirits. She silently commented on the breeze, her mood finally light again. A sudden splash broke the silence. She leaned forward excitedly, calling out to him after spotting a fish jump. He stammered while watching her lean further ahead. In that moment, the outing truly experienced like a youthful date, carefree and lighthearted. Seated side by side, Shizuko blushed. Admitting her excitement was a bit embarrassing. Ceres reassured her, calling her beautiful and just as youthful. Shizuko reflected on her past, expressing how fulfilled she experienced now. Because Ceres had found her, she could live each day with joy. Hearing her words stirred something in him. The boat rocked gently, and he reached out, his eyes serious. They locked eyes as her name left his lips for a moment. Silence stretched between them, only their heartbeats filling the air. Without hesitation, Ceres leaned forward. Their lips met softly, however, with conviction, a quiet answer to everything left unsaid. Afterward, as dusk settled over the inn, a voice lingered. While they had once planned to part ways, something had clearly changed between them. Ceres found himself approached by two women who teasingly commented on his time spent with Shizuko and Sayo. Faced with their teasing, Ceres swiftly dropped to his knees in apology. One of them sighed, saying she would wait, while her tone remained uncertain. Afterward that day, the group casually parted ways inside the inn. At the open-air bath, one girl had already settled in. She sighed, enjoying the peaceful warmth until the sound of approaching footsteps caught her attention. Turning toward the sound, she spotted not one, however, all the other women entering. Ceres' name slipped from her lips as a mix of surprise and tension hung in the air. Ceres froze in disbelief as realization dawned. He had entered the wrong section. This was clearly the men's side, not a mixed bath. One of the girls stepped forward hesitantly, admitting she had been confused by a bathrobe left near the entrance. Others joined in, noting that the passageway seemed connected. Slowly, they pieced together that it was a shared hot spring, while none had expected it. Their casual remarks masked the awkwardness as they tried to act composed. Meanwhile, Ceres experienced increasingly cornered, unsure where to look or stand. Despite the tension, no one chose to retreat. Remarks about past customs being bold echoed humorously. Ceres found himself unprepared for the private bath's arrangement. Alone with two women, he tried to keep his gaze steady. Three more joined, smiling warmly as they stepped closer to the edge. The atmosphere became heavier with unspoken expectations, and while no one voiced it, the invitation to share space was unmistakable. A short exchange followed, and one woman noticed Ceres' flushed expression. Steam rose between them as they settled in. Each glance, each shift of cloth, pressed on Ceres' nerves. Two of them chuckled softly, teasing with restrained words. Their confidence overwhelmed him, and while they stated little, the message lingered. He wouldn't forget this moment. Heat and proximity tested Ceres' composure. Repeated exposure dulled surprise, however, sharpened awareness surrounded by calm smiles. His reactions remained out. Their ease contrasted his struggle, revealing how deeply the situation affected him, compared to everyone else present. Sitting closer, two women observed him carefully. Their satisfaction came not from provocation, however, from seeing honesty reflected in his unguarded responses. A sudden inner disturbance surfaced. Something restrained deep within reacted to the tension, forcing Ceres to focus inward and suppress an unfamiliar, dangerous impulse. Balance finally broke as closeness intensified. The group shifted instinctively, sensing the change, while Ceres remained at the edge between control and overwhelming desire. Calm came back briefly as they soaked in the hot spring, each settling into quiet comfort. Without warning, two women leaned in again, their words light, however layered with intent. Ceres froze, caught between pleasure and panic as his boundaries thinned. Moments later, tension overwhelmed reason. He collapsed backward with dramatic flair, shocking everyone present. Their amused expressions turned to concern. One woman's eye narrowed, watching his condition shift. Doubt and familiarity crossed her gaze as she assessed his state. Ceres awoke to their voices and gentle smiles. While scolded lightly, he experienced oddly at peace, surrounded by warmth that blurred the line between teasing and affection. After collapsing in the spring, Ceres was gently carried indoors. When he awoke, the women remained close, watching over him as concern faded into quiet relief. Light teasing filled the air as they commented on earlier events. Moments later, warm meals arrived. Seated together, the group shifted focus to recovery and comfort. Smiles came back as appetite took over. Ceres sipped from the broth with genuine admiration. Everything served carried a taste of home, and he appreciated the detail in every dish. Joy spread across the table. Laughter came easily as they shared a simple meal, and Ceres silently acknowledged how strange, yet welcome, this world had become. Laughter bubbled up as the sake started to flow. One woman's face flushed, and her carefree posture hinted at the drink's effect taking hold. Ceres, observing silently, grew more concerned than amused. Her robe, loosened without notice, revealed more than intended, further complicating the atmosphere. Soon, the others joined in, adding to the unease. Their playful expressions masked a growing boldness that left little room for retreat. One of them leaned closer, teasing without hesitation. Her words, casual on the surface, carried weight that pushed Ceres further off balance. Another chimed in without hesitation, her statement blurring the lines between jest and truth. While others remained bold, two women spoke more hesitantly. Doubt lingered behind their smiles, silently revealing insecurities beneath their graceful appearances. Ceres listened calmly, choosing not to escalate the mood, rather than respond directly. Nearby, a newcomer observed the group's closeness. Her cheerful jealousy added a new layer to the already complex dynamic forming around him. They all gathered once more around the table. Light chatter, shared food, and unspoken emotions filled the air, balancing intimacy with familiarity. Afterward that night, the mood shifted again. The women offered their attention openly, urging Ceres to relax and let them take the lead, if only for tonight. Restrained and confused, the young man finds himself surrounded. Control taken from him as unfamiliar tension fills the room. One woman moves closer, her calm confidence shifting the balance. Instead of force, deliberate proximity and steady intent increase pressure, leaving him uncertain how events will unfold. Gradually, guidance replaces restraint as emotions surface. Encouragement pushes him toward action while embarrassment and resolve mix, creating a fragile moment where resistance weakens. Momentum changes as bodies draw nearer, heat and urgency rising. By the end, resolve replaces confusion. Determination settles in his expression, signaling acceptance of the moment's direction, with tension lingering as roles fully reverse. Control slips further from his grasp as her determination builds. Despite the pace, she stays focused, ensuring every movement overwhelms his ability to resist. Another joins in with a confident tone and strategic approach. Satisfaction becomes a goal beyond comfort, leaving him caught in a cycle that denies reprieve. No space remains for hesitation. With firm gestures, she draws out everything he has kept guarded, leaving no part of him unexposed. A third figure leans in, calm yet assertive. Curiosity mixes with intensity as she ensures nothing escapes his attention, challenging him with her steady gaze. There's no pause between waves of pressure. Her words mark the promise of complete exhaustion. Exhaustion settles in as the girl collapses back, breath uneven and expression dazed from the intensity. Two others observe her state with satisfaction. Their confident smiles hint that their plan unfolded exactly as intended, leaving no doubt about who carried control throughout. Celebration follows the ordeal. Glasses are raised in quiet triumph, the room filled with a sense of shared accomplishment. No, while he rests alone indoors, the group enjoys the peaceful night air. Their relaxed demeanor contrasts sharply with the earlier tension, suggesting closure has been reached. Reflections begin as they discuss the outcome. One claims to have discovered an effective technique, while another affirms their success. Under the quiet night sky, two women stand side by side, holding drinks as they reflect on the evening. Thoughts turn more serious as one considers the future. Concern mixes with resolve, recognizing that continued desire may demand more effort and cooperation than before. Another steps forward with gentle confidence. Her expression reveals genuine intent, driven by a wish to give comfort and fulfillment without hesitation or restraint. Gathered together on the balcony, all four women share the calm aftermath. Leaning on the railing, one smiles softly. Warm memories surface, making her feel renewed, as if affection has carried her back to a brighter, more youthful time. While gazing at the night sky, she reflects on the past. While once seen as an older sister figure, her view of him shifted with time. Another woman smiles with quiet satisfaction together. They've reached a point where shared happiness no longer needs explanation. It simply exists between them. Lined up under the moonlight, they raise their glasses. The mood lightens as one prepares to speak again. A playful shift in energy hints at teasing among the group, softening the seriousness of the moment. The younger one offers a casual remark, clearly at ease. Modesty fades among close bonds, and the others react with amusement, letting the peaceful night wrap around them. A quiet reminder is shared under the moonlight, noting that even small carelessness could matter to someone important to them. Inside, one observes the sleeping figure with a soft voice. She notes his calm expression, silently pleased that the day ended on a positive note. The group gathers one final time before rest. Sitting together, they offer gentle farewells for the night, united by shared care and silent gratitude. Morning arrives with a shift in setting, far from the previous evening's warmth. Discussion turns to surprise over his personal life. Those speaking find it unexpected that all his companions are older, each more mature than even themselves. Uncertainty clouds her thoughts. Doubts linger behind her eyes, questioning whether someone with her past could still be accepted. She expresses her hesitation openly. Despite outward composure, a quiet vulnerability surfaces, as she wonders if her history would create distance. Elsewhere, a small group notices something unusual approaching. Confusion spreads among them as the street begins to stir with unexpected attention. The sound of hooves grows louder. A majestic carriage drawn by unicorns halts nearby, bearing the royal crest of Zamarl, sparking recognition and surprise. Speculation swiftly follows. The idea of a royal visit seems implausible. However, the possibility unsettles them. A sense of unease begins to settle in. While calm on the surface, both Ceres and his companions suspect the arrival isn't by chance. The group confronts the new arrivals. As tension builds, a direct question confirms what many suspected: the visitors came specifically for him. Standing tall before the group, the man introduces himself as Zenmark IV, king of the Zamarl kingdom. Without delay, the king states his purpose. He wishes to bestow the title of hero upon Ceres. However, his request carries an unspoken weight. In a sudden tonal shift, a different scene interrupts the narrative. A modern student stands atop a railing, delivering a strange and enthusiastic call to action. Ceres remained frozen as two figures entered the room, one of them radiating presence. A noblewoman stepped forward, her elegance unmistakable. The woman, with a composed smile, greeted everyone warmly. Her calm demeanor carried authority, drawing attention from all present. Clearly, she hadn't appeared without reason. Several women approached from the street, responding with friendly faces. Familiarity laced their expressions as they acknowledged her. A man introduced himself as Prime Minister Dalbel. His sudden appearance raised questions in Ceres' mind. Ceres hesitated, however, found himself surrounded by expectations. With little choice, he agreed to follow them to a villa in Kohain. He knelt before the king, unsure of the true intent behind the sudden praise. The royal's words, however, carried weight. Although they had barely spoken before, Ceres had once sent proposals during his time with the heroes' party. Their relationship never developed beyond that. The king, recalling those written plans, commended their brilliance. In his eyes, they had been the work of a refined strategist, far beyond ordinary expectations. Achievements spoke louder than titles. Ceres had slain countless dragons, including high-ranking ones, earning recognition as a national protector. Regret filled the king's tone. Talent like Ceres's being discarded by the heroes' party baffled him. Ceres remained before the king as the suggestion to bestow a title echoed through the hall. The old system of braves was no longer needed. From the castle walls, crowds watched as the king declared him a hero. Unlike before, the title now honored contributions, not just power. Privileges came with it. In times of crisis, Ceres would be permitted to seek aid directly from nobility and the king himself. Silence followed his hesitation. Denying the title might jeopardize his stay in the country. Accepting the honor, Ceres bowed his head. Recognition, once stolen, had came back, this time not through force, however respect. In a formal setting, the king extended his hand and granted Ceres the long-awaited title of hero. With the ceremony still underway, the king hinted at greater rewards, nobility, and even a royal marriage dependent on future merit. The announcement startled Ceres. His reaction betrayed disbelief, confirming he hadn't misheard the mention of the princess's hand. King Zamar had two daughters. One, Princess Marianne, was already married into the kingdom of Balta News. Followed swiftly, Balta had fallen. Marianne, once destined to marry the hero Zekt, was now the king's choice for Ceres, should he prove worthy. The presence of Princess Marianne alongside the king confirmed his intentions. Ceres understood the situation was more complex than expected. A request followed swiftly. The king mentioned a personal favor and urged Ceres to prepare for future exploits. Any hope for a peaceful life faded. Ceres listened intently. A dragon-like creature had taken residence near Kohain, a resort town. The situation required discretion. Orders were clear. He was to deal with the creature, preferably by slaying it, while negotiation was an option. Ceres accepted without hesitation. Before the cave's shadowy entrance, frustration brewed. What should have been a moment of rest now turned into yet another dangerous mission. Ceres considered going alone. However, his companions insisted on joining. The cave might hold more threats than just the dragon. Before discussions could begin, a group of monsters ambushed them. The party reacted instantly, cutting them down with practiced precision. As silence came back, one of the women reflected on the significance of being called a hero. Behind the praise was political motive. The king's decision to honor Ceres was also a move to secure a new elite force. Other nations were surely watching. With Ceres no longer tied to the Braves' party, powers like Gandalf or Galban might try to win him over for themselves. Ceres strolled with his party, noting how well informed they were. His reputation as a hero and dragon slayer, combined with S-rank status, drew attention naturally. His companions agreed, sharing that S-rank adventurers often received offers filled with wealth and temptation. He reflected silently, without accomplishments. No title or princess would have been offered. Meanwhile, the others fondly recalled their younger days as carefree C-rank adventurers. A change in topic brought up Princess Marianne. Ceres sensed the mission was becoming more personal than expected. He learned their connection dated back a decade. The woman admitted they once had a client relationship, one that hinted at something deeper left unsaid. The kingdom of Barda, where Princess Marianne had once married into, fell under siege by the demon army. Smoke and chaos filled the air to their families. The women claimed it was just a casual trip. In truth, they had already retired from adventuring. Behind the scenes, a secret mission had been issued by King Zamar to rescue Princess Marianne from the ruins of Barda. The group observed the stronghold. Charging directly was too risky. Enemy forces outnumbered them by far, prompting a more cautious approach. As they prepared, one member identified the enemy commander, an imposing demon woman. A protective spell was cast while the group prepared to engage. The group launched a full assault. Blades clashed and cloaks flew as they cut through the front line of demons. One of the warriors unleashed a devastating ice spell, freezing several enemies in place instantly. The tide started to shift. As the demon commander turned in confusion, a sudden ambush from behind caught her off guard. The attackers moved with precision. A magical barrier shielded the team. Calmly stepping forward, their leader ordered the path cleared toward the mansion, leaving no room for negotiation. Before the demon commander could react further, a blade pressed against her throat. With a whisper, her fate was sealed. The group advanced past fallen enemies. With the demon commander defeated, the way to the mansion was finally open. Inside the grand, ruined chamber, Haruka called out to Princess Marianne. The silence weighed heavily, broken only by her hopeful voice. A soft creak followed. From a hidden wardrobe, Marianne emerged, shaken however alive. Her eyes widened in recognition. After escaping the wreckage, Marianne listened to her rescuers recount the attack. The streets of Barda had fallen into chaos without warning. As the carriage carried them away, Marianne revealed how her maid had hidden her. Sadly, she had no knowledge of any other survivors left behind. Princess Marianne inquired the question she feared most. The expression on her rescuer's face gave her the answer. Tears welled up as the realization hit her. Her husband and son hadn't survived the attack. Unable to hold back the grief, Marianne broke down. Her companion embraced her gently, offering silent comfort through the sorrow. Afterward, the party remained together again. The story of the rescue and the kingdom's fall was shared with the others. Ceres listened in silence. The conversation ended with a quiet note. Their connection with the princess, while born of duty, had left a lasting impression. One meeting, one cup of tea, that was the extent of it. Marianne's friend grinned awkwardly, hinting that the option of marriage wasn't off the table. Ceres remained silent, unsure how to respond. Before anything could develop, a strange presence was detected. Something powerful waited ahead in the cave. Ceres offered to negotiate. Curiosity rose. With power great enough to tame dragons, even his allies wondered what he was truly capable of. Ceres admitted he didn't fully understand it yet. The answer appeared before them. A massive, terrifying beast remained at the cavern's center, more monstrous than expected. The party remained still. Confusion set in. Was this really the dragon they had been told about? It gazed nothing like one. Ceres stepped forward and attempted to speak with the beast, hoping to avoid conflict. The creature didn't respond. Its roar confirmed it couldn't understand his words. Negotiation had failed. Weapons were drawn. With no other option left, the group prepared for battle against the rampaging threat ahead. Ceres and his party confronted a monstrous beast lurking deep within the cavern. Weapons drawn, they prepared for a final strike, ready to end the threat together. Just as the finishing blow was about to be dealt, Ceres froze. A strained voice echoed from the creature, catching him completely off guard. The beast let out a guttural cry, however, within it, faint words emerged. Unmoved by the hesitation, the woman beside him tightened her grip on her staff. Before the monster could act again, she summoned a radiant barrier. The holy wall burst forth, crashing into the beast's gaping maw, halting its advance in an explosion of sacred force. An urgent warning rang out as the beast retaliated. She shouted for everyone to dodge immediately. The creature's sudden burst of strength shattered part of the barrier. Dust scattered as the party regrouped, while crouched behind cover. One fighter devised a new plan. She and Misaki prepared for a counterattack. Charging toward the monster's leg, Misaki struck with precision. Her blade, however, failed to pierce its thick hide. Without hesitation, her ally surged forward, delivering a powerful blow from a massive weapon, aiming to break the stalemate. Magic was summoned as the party changed tactics. A powerful ice spear launched straight toward the enemy. The spell struck its target. However, the beast withstood the attack. Size and resilience made it nearly untouchable. Ceres recalled the creature's earlier words. He started to understand it wasn't fighting to live, however begging for death. Standing beside the fallen creature, he understood the truth. It had once been a dragon, now reduced to a broken form. With his voice firm, Ceres gave instructions. Misaki was to aim for its heart and end its suffering swiftly. Ceres issued commands to prepare for the final assault. Shizuko was inquired to protect the vanguard with precision. He instructed Seo to cast a freezing spell. Even a few seconds would be enough. Flames wrapped around his blade as Ceres activated an enhancement spell, fueling it with elemental magic. He declared their plan to drive the spell directly into the beast's body with full force. With all preparations complete, the team charged forward, blades, spells, and resolve aimed at one goal, ending the battle. Misaki unleashed a powerful slash, her blade spinning with fierce momentum aimed straight at the beast's back. Following her lead, her comrade struck the ground with immense force, tearing open the monster's hide with raw power. A gaping wound remained. However, the creature retaliated with a swift claw swipe. Misaki narrowly avoided the strike. Before the attack could land, a barrier shimmered into place. Shizuko's timely magic saved Misaki from a fatal blow. As the creature recoiled, Sayo activated the freezing spell. Absolute Zero surged forth, encasing the monster in ice. Ceres drew strength from within, unleashing the dragon's power coursing through his body into his weapon. Magic flared violently as he drove his attack deep into the creature. Flames erupted on impact. Smoke poured from the wound as the beast let out a final groan. A faint voice echoed its gratitude. Observing the aftermath, Ceres sensed something unnatural. The creature's behavior experienced forced, as while driven by an outside force. He remembered a past warning. The truth became clear, it wasn't mere corruption. However, a curse from the black dragon. Ceres stared at the fallen dragon's body, uncertain if he would one day share its fate. The others rushed to his side in concern. Reassurance came through their presence. No one was harmed, and the tension slowly gave way to relief. With the danger behind them, cheerful banter resumed. Jokes and teasing lightened the air between the battle-worn group. He decided not to share his worries. For now, he would simply stay by their side and not burden them. At the royal estate, Ceres delivered news of the mission's success. The king, impressed, offered recognition and reward. Before receiving his reward, Ceres was inquired to meet someone privately. The name Marianne was mentioned. He entered a lavish room where the princess awaited, her presence immediately commanding attention. Marianne turned to him with a gentle expression. Her voice was soft as she addressed him. Up close, he was surprised by his youth, yet something about his presence gave off quiet strength. She acknowledged his deeds and the rumors surrounding him. His courage and his growing reputation had clearly reached the palace. Ceres remained before Princess Marianne, offering polite praise. Her beauty and noble presence impressed him. However, she grinned gently, brushing off the compliments. Without hesitation, Marianne started explaining the harsh reality of her position. Society, she noted, viewed women as disposable once their youth faded. Revealing her past, she admitted to having children. The confession came with no trace of shame, only clarity. She turned away, speaking of the absurdity of becoming someone's wife again. While her father had spoken of the possibility, she clearly saw it as unrealistic. The conversation ended with a question that hung in the air. Both remained silently, separated by expectation and reality. Ceres's unexpected reply left Marianne startled. Despite her doubts, he spoke with honesty, saying he wouldn't mind. His calm response contrasted her growing embarrassment. He elaborated without hesitation, stating that beauty wasn't limited by age. Marianne remained frozen, surprised by his blunt confidence. Ceres mentioned his 4 wives, placing her on equal ground, shifting nervously. Marianne admitted her weaknesses. Housework wasn't her strength. However, she offered something else. Lowering her gaze, she continued with a flushed face. During the nights, she promised unwavering devotion. Blushing deeply, he glanced away before smiling awkwardly. Trying to stay composed, he acknowledged her offer. Marianne remained close, gently gripping Ceres's cloak. She admitted her inability to fight alongside the others. While lacking combat skills, she promised to wait and pray for his safe return. Lowering her gaze, she questioned whether someone like her was appealing. Insecure, however hopeful, she revealed a rare vulnerability. Ceres responded with honesty. While the royal status brought complications, he carried no complaint toward her. His words, while cautious, carried sincerity and respect. As the mood shifted, a sudden sound broke the silence. A series of beeps came from Ceres's side pouch. Ceres activated the communication orb, Surprised by the unexpected message, a familiar voice greeted him warmly. Through the crystal, a familiar voice greeted Ceres. Sally from the Adventurers Guild appeared with urgency in her tone. Her expression turned serious. Due to the nature of the situation, a gag order had been issued. The orb displayed an image for adventurers chained and battered. These were the members of the hero's party. Ceres immediately recognized their faces. They had fallen to one of the Demon King's elite generals' strong-arm Maimon. Their defeat had been total, their capture absolute. Despite their condition, they were still alive. Ceres learned their execution had been scheduled in 7 days. So far, the enemy had not taken their lives. The demon warrior remained tall, his back turned, radiating pressure. Muscles tensed as a deadly challenge was issued. Zekt sat in silence, reflecting on the conversation from earlier. The decision to quit weighed heavily, yet it had already been voiced by the others. Memories of the disastrous battle came back. The party, unprepared and overwhelmed, charged the dragons without any plan alone in his room. Zekt considered their future. Continuing the fight against the Demon King now seemed impossible. While regret lingered in his voice, Zekt chose acceptance. He carried back further words, acknowledging the finality of their decision with a quiet resolve. The girl sat nearby, still shaken. Across from them, the elder confirmed Zekt's path. Zekt received harsh criticism from the elder, who called out his weakness and accused him of dumping responsibility onto Ceres. Trying to defend himself, Zekt claimed he had spoken with Ceres before. He argued that, had he truly been irresponsible, he recalled a conversation with Ceres after the decision. Ceres had pointed out that other powers existed, ones capable of commanding humanity without needing the Pope's approval. The elder mentioned the Brave Protection Law, which grants brave warriors the right to assemble forces to battle demons. Zekt remembered Ceres' chilling words. If quitting wasn't allowed, he'd invoke that law and go to war no matter the cost. Ceres was officially recognized as a hero. Meanwhile, Zekt's former teammates reflected on responsibility. If one person abandoned it, someone else had to carry the burden. The elder ordered Zekt to return all his holy gear. His role as a brave had ended, and his comrades were dismissed as well. Zekt, stunned, questioned Ceres' true nature. Privately, Ceres admitted that becoming a hero alone was overwhelming. Curious about their plans, Ceres inquired the others what they intended to do next. With smiles and relief, the group agreed to retreat to the village. Ceres acknowledged his lost privileges, including polygamy. The group discussed who Ceres might choose, however, ultimately agreed the decision wasn't theirs to make. Maria, once close to him, gently declined a romantic future and inquired to remain only friends. Zekt grinned in understanding and accepted her choice. They all gazed forward to a quieter life in Gym Luna. Before they could depart, a guard informed them of an urgent mission. Demons were attacking the town. Despite the surprise, they swiftly shifted into action. With only one enemy, it experienced like a good start to their new chapter. Together, they ran toward the threat, ready for battle. A lone humanoid demon remained amidst the destruction. Smoke curled through the ruined town as civilians lay unconscious. Lyda readied her spell while the others remained prepared. Zekt called for the first strike, rallying the group into coordinated action. Magic surged forward in a powerful blast. Flames erupted on impact, signaling the battle had officially begun. Zekt and his ally launched into close combat. With synchronized movements, they unleashed their strongest techniques, Iron Cutter and Wings of Light, against the enemy. Despite their efforts, the demon proved formidable. Zekt was caught in its grasp, lifted helplessly as his companions gazed on in shock. The horned demon introduced himself as Maimon, one of the 4 heavenly kings. Zekt remained frozen, overwhelmed by his presence. In an instant, Maimon struck. Despite the team's effort, he mocked their identity as the hero's party. Without mercy, he grabbed one of the women and effortlessly restrained her. Their strength, he declared, was far too insufficient. Zekt charged with determination, striking repeatedly. His attacks, however, failed to land any real damage against the powerful enemy. Collapsed and breathless, Zekt claimed his title as humanity's strongest. Yet Maimon remained unimpressed, demanding a more worthy opponent. Zekt, bruised and exhausted, admitted that the title of humanity's strongest might now belong to Ceres. He could no longer rely on him. A boy stepped forward in defiance, confronting the demon with trembling hands. He swore vengeance in Ceres' name. Maimon paused, surprised by the child's resolve. Zekt shouted in warning. However, the boy carried firm, invoking the hero's name again. Amused by the defiance, Maimon declared his intention. The remaining party would be captured, and their execution delayed by 7 days. Defeated and wounded, the team lay scattered. Zekt, lying motionless, whispered a plea, asking Ceres not to come. They had failed to stop Maimon. Ceres remained before Princess Marianne. She called to him with concern, sensing the decision he'd already made. He apologized, placing their personal matters aside. Without hesitation, he prepared to teleport, determined to face the situation first. Reports confirmed the enemy, strong-arm Mammon, one of the 4 heavenly kings. His might rivaled even the demon kings, while Ceres assessed Mammon as weaker than the Black Dragon. Doubts clouded his mind. His current strength might not be enough. Despite the risk, Ceres resolved to go. He feared what his dragon-infused body might become, however chose to fight for the sake of his childhood friends. Before leaving, Ceres made a heartfelt promise to Marianne. She inquired only one thing: to return alive. With quiet resolve, he assured her. Once safely back, they would continue their future together. Thanks to his title as a hero, Ceres coordinated with multiple nations. Orders were sent to mobilize support forces and protect civilians. Understanding Mammon's threats, Ceres made arrangements. He requested the kingdom of Zamar to delay his companions, knowing their loyalty could place them in danger. Meanwhile, Shizuko and the others received a separate mission due to special conditions. They would be apart for a while, kept away from the coming battle. With a gentle smile, Ceres wished them well. His farewell was calm, while resolve burned silently beneath. Ahead lay the wastelands and his next trial. Facing the unknown, he braced himself and offered a silent apology to those he might leave behind. Before departing, he turned to Gianta, the dragon. A single request was made: reach the fortress city and prepare for what's to come. As they flew, memories came back. Ceres reflected on the strange path that led him here, marrying Shizuko and becoming stepfather to Zect and the others. While reckless, they were still young. As a former father, he watched over them not as allies, however, as if they were his own children. While Ceres pushed forward, the girls speculated about their mysterious quest. Tea and laughter masked their curiosity. Suspicion rose. One of them inquired Marianne if she knew more than she let on. Her reaction gave it away. She struggled to admit it, confessing her helplessness. Despite her father's orders, she feared failing to protect the person she loved most. Determined not to let Ceres face everything alone, Marianne cried out. She refused to live with the regret of doing nothing. Reality struck hard. The brave party had been captured and imprisoned in another place. Their allies watched the grim scene unfold through a magical orb. The mothers learned that the captured party would be executed in 7 days. While expected, the news hit hard. Marianne cried out in shock, however the others remained resolute. Abandoning their children was never an option. Together, they marched forward. No one would let Ceres face death alone, not while they still had strength. With a calm, determined smile, one of them reassured Marianne. They would save everyone, no matter the risk. A report mentioned a dragon flying toward Dominique. Recognizing it as Ceres, the women started planning their fastest route to reunite with him. The group discussed their next move. Without a flying dragon, reaching Dominique in time seemed impossible. Marianne made a bold offer. She promised to handle everything secretly and suggested they use the royal griffin. The powerful beasts were prepared swiftly, clad in armor. The griffins remained ready for high-speed flight across vast distances. Before departure, Marianne silently prayed. Her hopes rested on their safe return and the success of their mission. Without delay, the women took to the skies. Mounted on royal griffins, they soared toward danger, determined to reach Ceres and save their children. As the others flew ahead, Marianne remained silently, her eyes filled with quiet resolve for what's coming next. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a dragon sliced through the sky with a rider aboard below. A demon lord remained in silence, watching the creatures approach. Ceres landed beside the dragon, his calm presence contrasting the destruction left in his wake. The creature exhaled smoke, its eyes fixed ahead. Zek trembled, stunned that Ceres had came back, despite everything. Regret mixed with shame as Ceres spoke, refusing to let anger guide him. Without hesitation, Ceres revealed his new life. He had married Shizuko and Haruka, Sayo, and Masaki too. Shock rippled through the group. Faces contorted in disbelief, their minds struggling to reconcile past actions with present consequences. Silence followed. Confusion erupted among the prisoners. Each struggled to understand how Ceres had ended up marrying their mothers. Ceres calmly explained everything. He rescued Shizuko from slavery. As for the others, their bonds formed through conversation and choice. Zekt and his companions recoiled at the truth. Age gaps, shock, and disgust churned within them. Their reaction, however, didn't faze Ceres, who remained resolute. Declaring himself their new dad, Ceres made his position clear. Children deserved a present guardian. The demon watched, amused. Ceres turned to face him, determination unwavering. With goodbye stated, he marched toward battle. The clash was inevitable. Ceres lunged forward with speed, slashing through the air as flames trailed behind his blade. His sword connected, igniting a burst of fire across the demon's chest. Without pause, he followed up with a secondary attack, pressing closer with focused precision. Recognizing the futility of direct combat, Ceres shifted tactics. The attacks were a distraction. His true plan required something else entirely from his pouch. He drew a special hammer, not just any weapon. This one could destroy the source of the demon's power. A final leap brought him overhead. He swung with full force, the hammer crashing into the demon's horn. The impact left the demon stunned. Ceres launched his attack. However, the demon swiftly closed the distance and caught him mid-strike. Surprise filled his eyes. Despite taking visible damage, the demon grinned. The holy weapon meant nothing to him. Ceres' efforts had failed to break through. Forced to his knees, Ceres clutched his arm in pain. From the side, his allies screamed, their voices echoing in desperation. Behind the prison bars, his former comrades pleaded for him to escape. None of them wanted to see him fall here. Smoke filled the battlefield. The demon towered over Ceres, his voice calm and mocking. He dismissed the effort as dull. Ceres froze as the demon mocked his weakness. Overhead, two winged beasts soared through the sky, signaling something had changed. Descending with precision, 4 powerful women arrived. They were no ordinary allies. Each carried strength, experience, and intent. The battlefield had shifted. Without hesitation, they coordinated. Haruka moved to secure the captives. Meanwhile, Sayo and Misaki prepared to confront the threat head on. A devastating sword strike shattered the ground as one unleashed a powerful slash. Her technique forced the demon to guard. Before he could recover, another attack followed. Ice burst outward from the mage's spell, halting the enemy's advance and covering Ceres. Freed from their restraints, the prisoners grinned with relief. Ceres remained tall, supporting one of his wives as they regrouped. Chains clattered to the ground as another ally approached with the keys. The group started to free each other swiftly. Ceres, focused and firm, signaled there was no time to rest. The battle wasn't over yet. Regret weighed on the former party members. Realizing the consequences of their actions, they remained silently, acknowledging their past mistake. A soft moment followed. One of Ceres' wives gently reached out, adjusting his collar with care. Magic shimmered faintly between them as she started healing him. Shizuko knelt beside Ceres, her voice calm. She reassured him that no one blamed him. While hurt, he tried to explain his decision. A soft smile formed as she leaned closer. Emotion stirred as tears welled in both their eyes. Forgiveness needed no further words. Meanwhile, the demon continued to stand his ground. Surrounded, he remained unfazed by the women's attacks, dismissing them as weak. Each blow bounced off his hardened body. Confidence radiated from him as he repeated the same phrase, shrugging off their strikes. The battlefield shook with force. Stones rose around him as he declared his strength. Their efforts seemed futile. A violent shockwave blasted everyone backward. Allies and enemies alike were thrown through the air and hit the ground hard. Pain settled into their limbs. The women gritted their teeth, realizing just how strong their opponent truly was. None of them had faced force like this before. Despite injuries, Ceres remained again. Energy gathered in his hand, his will refusing to break. Nearby, the shattered staff and orb lay forgotten. Far away, in the kingdom of Zamar, nobles and citizens gathered. A projection displayed the battlefield, showing Ceres at the heart of the chaos. Among the crowd, one woman trembled. Memories of past devastation came back as she watched her loved ones face danger. The demon acknowledged Ceres' persistence with a rare smirk. Seeing him still standing, he decided to take him more seriously. The women regrouped, determined to support him. However, the demon declared he'd only accept a fair duel after eliminating what he called nuisances. Ceres saw Shizuko moving forward. Panic flared as he shouted, trying to stop her before it was too late. Flashes of memories surged. Faces of those he loved filled his mind, wives who brought him peace, warmth, and purpose. That happiness was everything. He couldn't bear to lose it now. Without hesitation, Ceres lunged. Power radiated from him as he confronted the demon directly. Emotion pushing past pain, Ceres approached the demon without hesitation. Confusion spread across everyone's faces. Even the demon paused, unsure of his intent. With sudden force, Ceres clamped his jaw shut on the demon's body. His eyes burned, sharp teeth sinking in. Black blood sprayed from the wound. Ceres refused to let go, holding fast with a grip that defied reason or fear. The demon staggered backward, disbelief etched into his face. No one had ever dared such a reckless move. Shock rippled through the onlookers. The wives remained frozen, torn between alarm and awe. None had anticipated this kind of attack. Ceres' right arm twisted unnaturally. Scales crept up his skin, transforming it into something monstrous and powerful. His gaze locked forward. No fear remained in his eyes. Resolve burned, and something inside him had awakened. Energy surged through his limbs. The pain was gone. Instead, strength filled every muscle, overwhelming and unfamiliar. The demon lunged in rage, however Ceres countered with brutal precision. His scaled arm punched deep into the enemy's chest, halting the charge. Despite the blow, Ceres' voice remained steady. He called himself a regular human, confused. The demon trembled, unable to understand how this was possible. Ceres launched into the air and unleashed a powerful kick. The blow landed cleanly, sending the demon staggering. Rage twisted the demon's face. From above, Ceres dropped with force, his hands clasped together. The impact smashed the demon into the stone floor, cracking it apart. Enraged, however still defiant, the demon shouted. Ceres remained calm, warning him not to get arrogant just because of his strength. Dark energy burst from the demon's body in retaliation. He cloaked himself in flame and smoke, trying to blind and push Ceres back. As the dust settled, the demon started removing his cloak. Muscles tensed. He admitted defeat no longer seemed likely. Now he would fight seriously. The demon revealed his final technique, one he could only unleash once in decades. His confidence grew. Ceres responded calmly. Dark energy surged behind him as wings burst forth from his back. Both warriors faced off, the earth cracking beneath them. The wives observed silently, unsure what would happen next. Ceres launches into the air with force, wings outstretched, aiming directly at the towering enemy. Across the field, the demon stands grinning, his massive fists already in motion, smashing the earth beneath. As the demon swings upward, Ceres rotates his body in midair. Closing the gap in an instant, he drives his foot forward with precision. The momentum of Ceres' attack sends the enemy stumbling back. A second strike lands, forcing a pained expression from the demon. From the castle walls, several women observe the fight. One notes Ceres' unexpected strength. High above the battlefield, Ceres descends once more, his wings slicing through the air. Ceres swoops in at blinding speed, fist extended toward his towering foe. The enemy braces, raising both arms in anticipation. His blows land fast and precise. The first impacts the demon's guard, however the force doesn't relent. Rather than falter, the demon lets out a shout of admiration. He welcomes the challenge and clenches his fists with renewed spirit. Ceres remains calm, noting the demon's resilience. Exhaustion creeping in, Ceres narrows his eyes and charges again. Each flap of his wings pushes him faster. The demon counters, catching Ceres mid-flight with sheer strength. A powerful slam drives them downward, crashing into the stone structure below. The demon roared with fury, caught off guard by the unexpected resistance. Ceres soared into the sky, leaving behind a powerful burst of wind. Observers remained frozen, eyes following the streak of wings, disappearing across the battlefield. Among the onlookers, tension rose. They sensed the scale of power Ceres now wielded, inhuman and absolute. Doubt faded from their expressions. Confidence replaced hesitation. While concerned, they trusted him. At last, Ceres reappeared, his figure calm. A faint smile formed as he approached. The war seemed momentarily distant. The group remained together. Their expressions strained. Each had taken damage, and the toll was visible. On the ground, one of them clutched her side, unable to cast healing magic. Another knelt beside her, concern etched on her face, turning toward the woman before him. The young man hesitated only briefly. He extended his hand with hope, silently asking for assist. They could no longer provide themselves. Emotion surged within him as exhaustion and relief collided. Tears broke through as he covered his face, the weight of survival pressing hard on his chest. Without warning, he collapsed forward. His body tumbled across the ground, no longer able to support his effort. Maria received a small potion, her hands trembling as she stared at it. Her companion offered no comfort, only a cold remark. Despite the seriousness of the injury, the other girl insisted survival alone was sufficient, brushing aside Maria's concern. Nearby, the remaining members remained in silence. One of the women reassured them that healers would arrive later. Lightheartedly, two women smirked at the situation. With unsettling confidence, they stated that once Ceres came back, they'd hold a family meeting. The atmosphere shifted, confusing the others. Mel remained in shame. A harsh comment pierced the tension she had soiled herself. Disgusted expressions surrounded her. While Ceres rested unconscious nearby, two women discussed their next step, far away in the holy kingdom of Gandal. A crowd buzzed with questions. Confusion spread swiftly as they spoke about Ceres' sudden transformation and disappearance after grabbing Maimon. Inside the royal chambers, nobles debated his identity. Some were shaken by his inhuman appearance. Others defended him without hesitation, hailing him as a true hero. A woman with flowing hair silently confirmed that the transformed being was indeed Lord Ceres. Her words seemed to carry both admiration and awe. Former Saint Cecilia remained enraptured. Blushing and smiling, she declared him worthy of her devotion. Cecilia, still flushed from earlier, assured everyone that Ceres would triumph using his divine powers. In the Galvan Empire, the topic of Ceres had reached the royal court. A noble raised the idea of him as a potential suitor, citing the strength he had displayed. Frey, once a famed sword saint, reacted with mixed feelings. Another noble commented on Ceres' growing list of wives. He casually noted that if Ceres could accept them, a 28-year-old like Frey should pose no issue. Among Ceres' wives were two infamous warriors, Misaki, the berserk Black Knight, and Haruka, the smiling Reaper demon. Frey remained stunned, questions swirling in her mind. Ceres' power, his teachers, and his origins now seemed beyond anything she had imagined. Elsewhere, a volcano erupted with explosive force. Ceres and his opponent relocated there, choosing isolation for their final clash. Floating above the volcanic rock, the enemy carried Ceres in one hand, annoyed. Ceres demanded to be released, clearly unimpressed by the display of dominance. Calmly, Ceres gripped his foe. He reminded the demon of the scorching environment, noting the magma's deadly temperature. Their battle turned into a trial of will. The demon welcomed it with a laugh, however questioned if a human could survive such a place. Ceres glanced at the ribbon tied to his waist, Shizuko's. His body had become that of a dragon, and with that transformation came resilience. Deciding to break away, Ceres took flight. His opponent tried to pursue, however the distance grew. Flames consumed the battlefield. Within the inferno, the demon sank slowly. Even in defeat, he grinned, acknowledging the thrill of the battle above the scorched terrain. Ceres hovered silently. Smoke curled around him as he observed the scene below, staring at his clawed hand. Ceres understood the change. He had crossed the line. Ceres reflected on his state. His body had undergone dragonification, a transformation triggered by the Black Dragon's curse. A massive figure emerged through the mist, a dragon, tall and imposing. Its wings stretched wide as raw energy pulsed through its scales. Examining his appearance, he noticed his unexpected color. Instead of black, his dragon form had taken on a yellow hue, surprising even himself. Looking down at the ground, Ceres acknowledged the truth. He had come to understand the full extent of his newfound power. Although unable to defeat the Black Dragon, he could crush Maimon instantly. If Maimon was truly stronger than the Demon King, two observers watched the swirling sky. One deduced that the true rulers of the world were the elusive Dragon King's beings, powerful enough to control the balance behind the scenes. Hovering high, Ceres understood the truth. Only the Dragon Kings could match his power now. Descending, he reversed his transformation. With the process of humanification complete, his dragon form faded away, leaving behind his human appearance. Although he had came back to human shape, his essence hadn't changed. His arm had regenerated. Staring at his hand, Ceres questioned if he'd still be accepted. Despite his fears, someone called out to him, someone who still saw him as Lord Ceres. Not a monster. Ceres contacted her through the communication crystal, informing her that Maimon had been defeated. Relief washed over her face. Emotions once restrained broke through. Around her, others in the room relaxed, reassured by the news of his safety. Overwhelmed, her body responded instinctively. She stumbled slightly, unprepared for the emotional release. On his end, Ceres noticed her reaction and offered a light-hearted smile, trying to ease the moment. Still holding the crystal, Ceres hesitated. A belief crossed his mind. He was no longer fully human, conflicted by his transformation. Ceres silently wondered if such a future could still be shared. Fears about connection and compatibility stirred beneath the surface. Ceres informed her of his departure, intending to return to the royal capital immediately. Flying alone, he soared across the sky. Despite his strength, uncertainty weighed heavily. Elsewhere, former Saint Cecilia reflected on the past. She recalled a time when she once remained against the Demon King, only to be completely overwhelmed and defeated without mercy. That memory lingered. Frey and Cecilia were the only ones left standing after the hero and sorcerer were killed instantly. Just before it was too late, Shizuko and Princess Sayo had intervened. The two women did something unknown to the Demon King. From afar, a girl observed Ceres through the crystal communication device. She silently acknowledged the truth. The boy now wielded the power of a dragon. Alone in her chamber, Cecilia's heart stirred. Her admiration grew stronger, not only for his strength, however, for the way he reignited hope within her. Emotion overcame hesitation. She found herself drawn to thoughts she hadn't expected, ones filled with longing and devotion. The moment lingered in quiet tension. Her breath trembled as she remained seated, lost in her thoughts. With a soft gaze, she turned her eyes toward the screen. Beyond admiration, she expressed a sincere desire to stand beside Ceres, not just in feeling. Marianne flushed with anticipation, tension building inside her. A rival approached, yet her thoughts remained firmly fixed on Ceres. Seated atop a shimmering platform, Lord Bauer stared into the void, overwhelmed by confusion. A younger man spoke calmly, analyzing the impossible. The chances of a new Dragon Lord arising were negligible. He reclined with ease, flipping through a book as if discussing the weather. Only one Dragon Lord still possessed to deliver him. Without hesitation, he answered. The liver had gone to Ceres, the man Lord Bauer had once ordered him to meet. Bauer listened in silence. The man explained further he'd accidentally killed Ceres in battle. Offering his liver was the only way to make amends. Unknowingly, he had created the sixth Dragon Lord. The revelation stunned him. Ceres, against all odds, had successfully become the newest Dragon Lord. Lord Bauer, calm and composed, issued a command. Someone needed to teach Ceres the laws. Once again, the burden fell to the reluctant warrior, who couldn't hide his irritation. Protests came swiftly. Teaching wasn't his strength, and his own flaws weren't a secret. A new voice entered. From the shadows emerged a composed woman, the Blue Dragon. Displeased by the turn of events, the warrior grumbled. Meanwhile, Lord Bauer reminded him of the chaos he'd caused. A vast domain stretched below one soon to be ruled. Inside the stone hall, a group of former allies sat in silence. Concern over Ceres stirred unease. No one understood what had become of him. Rumors ran wild. They recalled how their own mothers had gone to see Ceres. Stranger still, had experienced like the women had chosen to follow him. Outside the stronghold, someone approached. The rescue team had came back, drawing attention. A familiar figure moved among them, sparking surprise and confusion. Cecilia, the former saint, remained before them. Her calm expression masked deep judgment. Kneeling beside the injured, Cecilia examined the girl's condition. Memories of betrayal surfaced. Cecilia inspected the wounded arm with practiced eyes. Despite the injury's severity, she calmly assured them it could be healed. While she agreed to assist, it came with strings attached. Her decision was influenced by debts to Shizuko and Sayo. When inquired about her conditions, Cecilia revealed the truth. Her feelings for Ceres had grown strong, no longer just gratitude. However, genuine affection had taken root. A bold request followed. She wanted a mediator, someone who could assist her win Ceres' heart. The boy rejected the plea instantly. He dismissed her as too old for Ceres and refused to play matchmaker. Cecilia responded swiftly, locking the boy in a tight hold. His careless remark about her age had clearly crossed a line. Pinned to the ground, he swiftly surrendered. Cecilia, however, embraced the idea of becoming a stepmother, with a cheerful glow, undeterred by the implications. Negotiations ended in her favor. The girls, desperate for aid, agreed to support her romantic pursuit of Ceres, if it meant saving their friend, raising an elixir in hand. Cecilia invoked holy power, while she lacked the ability to heal perfectly alone. With determination blazing in her eyes, she cast her strongest spell. The sacred incantation Perfect Heal surged forth, ready to restore every wound with brilliance and grace. The group, now fully healed, grinned with relief. Cecilia's voice cut through their joy, reminding them to uphold the promise they made. Elsewhere, two women worked silently amid ruins, casting healing magic on the wounded. Amid broken walls and scattered debris, rescuers searched tirelessly. One warrior called for assist, confirming the survivors were still alive beneath the rubble. The healer squad arrived just in time. One of the women turned to her companion and assured her they could handle the rest from here. Tired, however compliant, Shizuko nodded. Worn down by effort, she admitted defeat. Continuing further would only lead to collapse, and they still had much more to do. Confident in his strength, the woman reassured herself that Ceres would return soon after defeating Mammon. Just as expected, Ceres appeared. Standing tall amidst the rubble, he calmly confirmed the outcome. Mammon had been defeated. His return drew astonished reactions. The women gathered around him, disbelief painted across their faces. Ceres spoke casually, noting the bloodstains on her ribbon. He doubted they could be washed out. Gasps followed as someone understood her arm had fully regenerated. Shock spread through the group. Few had ever witnessed such complete healing. Even she couldn't believe it was possible. With the battle over, Ceres suggested they talk after a short break. He had questions of his own, and everyone needed time to recover. Standing united, the women welcomed him back with warm smiles. Their gratitude, admiration, and affection were all directed toward the man who had saved them again. Ceres came back the sentiment with a calm smile, simple yet meaningful. His words made it clear he considered this place home. Plans were swiftly laid out. The group decided to regroup with the others and return to the royal capital, hoping for peace after chaos. Just as things started to settle, an awkward voice broke the silence. One boy hesitated, then finally addressed Ceres, acknowledging him not as a comrade. With smiles and renewed camaraderie, the former party extended an offer to Ceres. They inquired him to rejoin their ranks, and one even jokingly inquired if they could call him Papa. Ceres froze, face contorted in embarrassment. The entire exchange experienced too awkward to process. Attempting to move past the awkwardness, Ceres tried to keep things casual. He inquired to simply be called by name. However, deep down, he experienced like he was the only one suffering through this strange reunion. Then came a bold introduction. Cecilia, the former saint, stepped forward with a radiant smile. Ceres recognized the name. Cecilia had once fought the Demon King as part of the last hero party. Ceres struggled under pressure as Cecilia casually nudged him forward. He nervously introduced her as the one responsible for healing everyone. The girls sang Cecilia's praises with gleaming eyes while their compliments ranged from heartfelt to hilariously blunt. Cecilia's smile twitched, clearly unimpressed with their commentary. She scolded them for their lack of tact. Moments later, she pulled Ceres aside. No more teasing or circling the issue this time. She spoke directly and with resolve. With an affectionate gaze and confident smile, Cecilia made her bold request. She inquired Ceres to accept her not just into his party, however into his life as his fifth wife. With a soft smile, Cecilia leaned in, asking her question again. Her voice was gentle, however her eyes were unwavering, awaiting Ceres' answer. Ceres hesitated, his thoughts raced, unsure how to respond. He already had more than 4 wives, and Princess Marianne was technically the 5th. To his surprise, Cecilia dismissed the concern without hesitation. With a calm expression, she told him it didn't matter, leaving Ceres stunned and confused. Cecilia started to explain her ties. Shizuko and Seo, both close to Ceres, had once been her mentors. She added that she also knew Misaki and Haruka. Their shared history made everything simpler. Ceres hesitated, overwhelmed by the sudden proposal. They had only just met, and the situation was escalating too fast. Cecilia grinned gently, revealing she had witnessed his battle with Mammon through a magical crystal. His overwhelming strength had deeply impressed her. With a blush, she pressed against him, declaring that her entire life's purpose may have been to meet him. Cecilia calmly delivered even more shocking news: she had the Pope's permission to marry him. Holding out a glowing orb, she confirmed the final step. The Pope's message was ready, and the light within it gleamed with approval. Her confidence never wavered. A grand vision of the Pope appeared, arms outstretched in divine proclamation. He named Ceres the true hero, and praised him as the most exalted figure of the age. Cecilia grinned softly as the message continued. Ceres would receive a noble title, land surrounding Kohane's castle, and her hand in marriage, all bestowed by the Pope's will. Ceres was taken aback. He had expected to be treated as a monster due to his overwhelming power. Despite his reservations, he accepted the reward on one condition. While power brought complications, he would move forward only with his existing wives' full support. Cecilia nodded with grace. She understood the condition perfectly. As they prepared to depart, the others chuckled about Cecilia's usual antics. Despite the chaos, she hadn't changed at all. Shizuko spoke seriously, asking Cecilia if she truly acted on her own rather than the church's still. They added a condition. If Ceres were to marry Cecilia, he must also consider his ties to other important women, namely Princess Marianne and Princess Frey. With a bright smile, Shizuko suggested the answer. Marry all 3. Her tone was light. However, the meaning was clear. Balance would be crucial moving forward. Cecilia and Ceres were both stunned. The logic was simple. Choosing only one would hand the church too much influence. Shizuko clarified the political logic. If Ceres married all 3, no single nation would dominate him. She further explained that stability among the theocracy, the kingdom, and the empire was essential. Cecilia, flustered yet earnest, tried to cut through the politics. Her love for Ceres, she stated, was genuine no matter how strategic things gazed. Ceres didn't like how swiftly the situation was spiraling. With tension rising, he made a snap decision. He'd postpone the choice and delay his answer. Before anyone could stop him, he turned to run. Claiming he needed to consult all 3 nations, he made a hasty exit, leaving a stunned Cecilia behind. Ceres launched into the sky with dragon wings, fleeing boldly, while everyone watched in stunned disbelief and mild frustration. Everything spiraled out of control, forcing him to flee the chaos by air as fast as possible. Before leaving, he activated a crystal ball to inform others of his return to the capital. While approaching the forest, an unsettling presence caught his attention. Something powerful was already waiting. 2 figures appeared, one familiar, the other unknown. The man grinned, introducing the woman beside him. She was no ordinary companion, however, a dragon royal, just like him, a blue dragon lord. Rather than hostility, the woman calmly acknowledged his transformation. He was no longer ordinary, he had become one of them. A dragon royal and lord. Recognition sparked a shift. Questions surfaced as he confronted the man about a strange curse. The other, clearly surprised, demanded an explanation. A confession followed. After an unintended fatal duel, the man had offered his liver as atonement. They discussed a mysterious monster he once met. Strangely, it radiated a dragon's presence. Unexpectedly, she mentioned her brief stay in the distant country of Balta. Her calm tone contrasted with his confusion. The decision had been spontaneous, unplanned. While there, she spent time in libraries drawn to the nation's rare and valuable books. During her stay, a peculiar noble youth had taken interest in her, adding an odd twist to her tale. Demons struck while she was away, turning the country to ruins. Despite her cold demeanor, feelings had begun to grow for the noble who once pursued her. Upon returning, she learned only one princess had survived the massacre. Everyone else had perished before she could intervene. The streets were littered with corpses, buildings in ruins. She remained among the aftermath, taking in the devastation. Her anger surged. The urge to annihilate the demons surfaced, however rules forbade direct interference with the lower realm. Among the rubble, she found the boy's lifeless body, overcome by emotion. She acted on impulse and offered him her liver, reviving him as something more. She remained before the boy turned. Monster haunted by the result of her own decision. Ending his life had never been an option. Regret lingered. Even after transforming him, she continued watching from afar, debating whether to relieve his suffering. Despite the pain, she offered a soft smile in gratitude. Ceres, realizing the past's weight, recognized the boy as yet another victim from Balta. Marianne's losses echoed in his mind: family, friends, a shattered kingdom. Her resilience amazed him, however he questioned his place amid her grief. She extended an offer: not for now, however someday. If the centuries wore him down, Dragonium, the dragon's realm, would welcome him. The revelation struck him: life among dragon lords meant centuries, maybe thousands of years of immortality. They were revered like gods. A vision of the women he cherished flashed before him. The belief of outliving them all left him overwhelmed. Curious and uneasy, he inquired about Dragonium. They explained that only those with the instincts of a dragon could reach it. They hadn't come just to talk. Their purpose was clear: they wanted to determine what kind of dragon lord he would become. Each carried a distinct color, each with different powers. Transformation was inevitable. When his dragon form awakened, the truth would reveal itself. Until then, he accepted their intent with a quiet nod. A massive dragon appeared before them, its overwhelming presence silencing everyone. Faces stiffened in awe and disbelief. They soon identified him as a yellow dragon. His fate, they claimed, was a life filled with boredom and peace. Concerned, he inquired if that meant rejection. On the contrary, yellow dragons were symbols of fortune, beloved by all, and bringers of good luck. Ceres listened as she prepared to share the unshakable laws of dragons, ones no dragon lord could break. The sacred commandments echoed: never destroy the world, never battle fellow dragon lords, love all dragons, and uphold these rules above all else. She grinned, however her warning was clear: violating the dragon rules would bring consequences. Her eyes revealed no warmth. With their message delivered, the two dragons departed into the sky, leaving him grounded and believed alone again. He turned toward the castle. Something remained unfinished. Someone important was waiting. Inside the grand halls, a woman reflected on the past decade. Disaster had nearly struck once more. However, Ceres had saved them all. Hope still filled her heart. 10 years had passed, yet she remembered the promise he would return for her. She remained silently before a portrait, whispering to her late husband, hoping she could find happiness again. A knock startled her. Outside the window, wings spread wide, Ceres waited. Just as he promised, he landed gently on the balcony, apologizing for his delay. Her surprised voice called out his name with emotion. While he joked about avoiding a dramatic entrance, his true reason was simple: he came to see her. Blushing, she struggled to find the right words. As night blanketed the city, she made a quiet plea. All she wanted now was to ask for one selfish wish. He carried her through the night sky, arms wrapped gently around her as they soared above the rooftops. Doubt crossed his mind, however she reassured him. Ceres, now revered beyond royalty, had nothing to fear. Waves brushed the shore. She longed for a quiet place, one where only they could exist. They strolled slowly along the moonlit beach. Sand softened each step while silence filled the space between them. Joy lit her face for the first time. She experienced the beach shared with the one she'd waited for. He mentioned how far the royal capital experienced by carriage. However, her smile made it clear his wings, made the journey short and special. A moment later, he gazed down, admitting what weighed on him most. He was no longer human. Fingers gently entwined, and he confessed something deeper. He doubted he could ever have children. Despite his fears, she responded with warmth. To her, his heart mattered more than any form he took. With steady eyes, she promised support. Shizuko, the others, and she would always remain by his side. She praised his hands, hands that had saved many lives. Their warmth reminded her of his humanity. Thoughts stirred within him. Despite all the challenges ahead, alliances, heirs, and dragon politics, he understood he had been foolish to doubt. Under the moonlight, he carried her close and kissed her. For once, the weight on his shoulders lifted in that moment. He experienced truly understood. Emotion overwhelmed him. Awareness of what had begun to stir between them made his heart race with confusion and tension. He wondered if his transformation played a part in how things escalated. Proximity and longing clashed, creating a situation he hadn't prepared for. She addressed him with gentle hesitation. Realizing what she noticed, Ceres flushed, caught between surprise and panic. A sudden gesture escalated the awkwardness. In a flurry of nerves, she pulled back and apologized instinctively. He tried to explain, however, she calmly reassured him. Her tone was soft, her expression kind, rather than embarrassment. She expressed comfort to her. His reaction only proved sincerity and affection. He hesitated as the atmosphere grew more charged. While drawn to her, Ceres voiced concern about the timing and setting. Despite her royal status, she expressed vulnerability, reminding him that beyond titles, she was still a woman. Lowering herself gently, she made a heartfelt request, hoping he would understand and respond with care. Under the quiet night sky, she approached him with clear intent and heartfelt sincerity. Her words carried emotion that reached deeper than expected, catching him off guard. A gentle kiss followed. Neither rush nor uncertain. Arms wrapped around each other. They closed the distance. Moments passed and boundaries silently shifted. He responded with care and growing confidence. Desire built steadily. While she believed herself the one meant to guide him, she found her role reversed. Wrapped tightly in his embrace, she surrendered to the moment. Movements synchronized naturally, their connection now undeniable. Clinging tightly to him, she experienced her thoughts waver as warmth spread through her body. The closeness unsettled her resolve, yet her arms refused to loosen. Confusion and desire mixed silently. Strength gathered as she pressed herself closer, her breathing uneven. Sensation overtook restraint, and instinct guided her movements. Above the dark sea, their figures drifted together through open air. Distance from the ground mirrored how far reality experienced. Calm replaced urgency as the moment passed. Reflected in her softened expression was satisfaction tempered by reflection. Leaning back against him, she allowed herself to rest. Comfort replaced tension, while uncertainty remained. He came back to the estate alone, offering a brief explanation. She listened calmly, surprised the others hadn't come back. Her tone shifted as realization dawned. With a quiet smile, she acknowledged that today belonged to just the two of them. She turned away without much fuss. Curiosity flickered in his voice. However, she inquired him to wait, leaving him briefly and believed. Reappearing with a changed appearance, she invited him forward. Her attire was different, catching him off guard for a moment. They strolled through town together under the evening lights. While unexpected, their time alone seemed natural. While walking through the night city, he inquired if she had a destination in mind. Her simple joy in the outing sparked an idea for something more exciting. At her enthusiastic suggestion, they made their way to the nearest casino. Bright lights and elegant decor welcomed them with overwhelming grandeur. She remained still for a moment, taking in the surroundings. Visiting such a place had always been her wish, while past restrictions had kept her away. Seated together at a table, she nervously examined the cards in her hands. With a cheerful expression, she admitted her quick loss. Her carefree attitude surprised him, especially considering her status. She grinned brightly, satisfied with the evening's events. Despite her earlier loss, her spirits remained high. Encouraged by her, he approached the roulette table. A past remark about his luck echoed in his thoughts. He placed a bet on 0 without hesitation. On the first spin, the results stunned them, an incredible win. Still calm, he declared he would repeat the same risky bet. The dealer praised his fortune without hiding surprise. A second win followed instantly. Coins piled high, and the dealer stared in disbelief. She could only gasp. After his major win, he decided not to press his luck. The dealer, however, had other plans and boldly challenged him to stay and play. He agreed under one condition: to place everything on 0. She accepted without hesitation, unaware of a hidden trick in the machine. As the wheel spun, tension grew. Against expectations, the result landed on 0 again, stunning everyone around the table. She collapsed at the table, unable to process the outcome. The total winnings shocked her further, as they now rivaled the value of land. Desperate for redemption, she begged for one more chance. Calmly, he reminded her of the stakes, questioning if she could handle the cost. The total earnings reached an unbelievable amount, shocking the dealer into panic. She couldn't believe the sum exceeded the value of the entire casino. News of the results spread swiftly. Even nobles and royalty were stunned, acknowledging it was beyond their reach. With no answer for the situation, the dealer weakly redirected them to speak with the casino's owner instead. The owner introduced himself calmly. Questions about the missing dealer were met with vague concern, raising silent suspicion. Shortly after, they found her unconscious and restrained. The owner revealed she had acted without approval, distancing the establishment from her reckless decision. Ceres pointed out the exact amount he was owed. However, the owner only presented part of the total. The owner explained that large bets required prior approval. He shifted blame to the dealer and claimed she would bear the full punishment. Realizing how serious the matter had become, Ceres offered to settle things with money, if absolutely necessary. Instead of calming the situation, the owner revealed a darker intention. The captured woman now faced the threat of permanent removal. Suspicion grew. The explanation experienced forced. Both Ceres and his companion questioned the legality and fairness of the casino's actions. Stepping forward, Marianne confronted the owner with calm authority. She questioned whether the casino's rules carried more weight than national law. The owner grew pale as realization struck, recognizing her identity. He stammered an apology, unable to defend his position. Rather than punish him directly, she offered a proposal. Taking over the casino would require effort, however it was possible. With Ceres's agreement, she suggested splitting control and profits. The owner, seeing no alternative, accepted without resistance. Afterward, as the city came back to peace, someone called out to both Ceres and Marianne, signaling that a new chapter was about to begin. Sharon enthusiastically pledged herself to their service, unaware she was intruding on their personal time together. Despite the success, Ceres experienced no joy. Wealth and admiration surrounded him, yet none of it matched what he truly desired. From the outside, it might appear like he achieved everything, however deep down, the emptiness lingered. With dragon wings extended, he silently carried Marianne into the night. Her presence brought calm, while questions still filled his mind. Once they landed, she softly acknowledged his fortune. In her eyes, he had gained much more than he understood. Marianne hesitated, wondering if she had overstayed her welcome. Yet Ceres reassured her that he had enjoyed the time. As they considered leaving, nearby guards raised concern. Attention on the princess was growing, prompting them to stay cautious. She leaned closer and softly inquired for a short break. The long walk had left her weary, especially in unfamiliar shoes. Afterward, steam filled the air as silence settled between them. Ceres understood her intent without needing direct words. Now alone, Marianne remained confidently. Ceres, aware of their solitude, started to wonder what would come next. Late at night, clothes lay scattered across the floor while two figures moved closely under dim light. Moments grew more intense, their bodies reacting instinctively to each other's presence. Her expression shifted from hesitation to vulnerability, giving in to emotions once buried deep outside. The world faded into silence. With rising urgency, their embrace deepened. Each movement reflected trust earned through pain and shared solitude. In the quiet that followed, she grinned softly. Her eyes shimmered, not from tension, however relief. Morning light spilled across the sheets. As he stirred awake, a sudden interruption shattered the stillness. After an unexpected arrival, the group of women entered the room, exchanging casual remarks as tension lingered. Ceres tried to take responsibility, stepping forward with quiet resolve. Marianne, however, calmly redirected the blame, diffusing any rising conflict with gentle composure. The air slowly shifted from confrontation to reluctant acceptance. Awkward silence followed, broken by a shared glance between Ceres and the young man. While fatigued, he remained composed. Without further comment, the women turned and exited the room. Their destination was clear time to clean up and reset. By the next day, weariness had settled in. While lounging, the women reflected on the surprising energy he had shown throughout. The atmosphere shifted from playful to teasing as the group gathered. Ceres, flustered and overwhelmed, endured their amused glances. Elsewhere, he remained silently by the window, sipping his drink. The peace of the morning offered a rare sense of clarity after the chaos of the previous night. Contentment settled in, surrounded by loyal companions. He reflected on the unexpected life he now led. United and confident, each woman remained by his side. Their connection to him, once uncertain, had now become unmistakably solid. Sudden footsteps disrupted the calm. The door creaked open. From the shadows emerged unwelcome guests, bringing new tension to the morning's peace. Old comrades arrived unexpectedly, demanding Seri's return. Their voices echoed. Across the room, Luck froze mid-sip, startled by tension.